dogs of the deep, dolphin mysteries. Bottlenose freaks, short beaks in the night. Humpback shadows, pygmies out of sight. All the dolphins, you know it's true. Rolling deep in the ocean blue. Stripes and spots, they rule the tide. Water dogs of the deep, they don't hide. In the river's grip, seas endless bounty. Ruling the waves, dolphin Illuminati. Praised by Romans, gods to the Greeks. Underwater rulers, the power peaks. In ocean depths, that counts to 6. Dolphins in the dark, never calling it quits. Striped and spotted in the sea's domain. Aquatic dogs in their own insane lane. Through rivers they ride, seas they roam. In the ocean depths, they make their home.
Well, I talk about insanity, which is what's going on in your mind, and outside, which is where you communicate with those outside. As you know, if you give too much of your insanity, they'll lock you up. I tried giving as much as I could. They locked me up. They published it, paid me.
Illuminati, deep, deep, deep in the deep they creep. It's that dolphin. Illuminati, in the rivers and the seas they be a constant mystery. It's that dolphin. Illuminati, it's that dolphin. Illuminati, deep, deep, deep in the deep they creep. It's that dolphin. Illuminati, in the rivers and the seas they be a constant mystery. It's that dolphin. Illuminati, it's that dolphin. Illuminati.
Everybody, it's Sam Triple here, and I want to tell you about my new project. It's called the Chaos Twins. We have an Indiegogo fundraiser for this comic book series about two twin girls with special powers who move to a new neighborhood and battle the forces of evil, the deep state, the Babylonians, the secret societies that are ruining everything. It's a comic book now, but we hope to turn it into a special animation. Just go to chaostwins.com.
Save us, Britney Spears! Can we be saved? God, why is Satan controlling the universe? Here comes Santa.
Constantly explore the room of possibilities come true. So what we do is call out to the good guys. Good guys. Good guys. Good guys. Witches, weirdos, bigger mistakes, entertaining, calming linguists. Good guys. Forum of decorum needs a secretive society to advance on philosophies intentionally, magically. Good guys, good guys, good guys, good guys. Witches, weirdos, mischief making. It's okay to change your thinking. Good guys. Good guys, good guys.
Big up yourselves and welcome back to another episode of the Secret Society of Good Guys. As always, we are your good guys, and here with us tonight is everybody's favorite. Everyone's family thinks they're crazy. Mystic Mark, welcome to the Secret Society of Good Guys. You can decide as the show goes on if you want to be beaten or sexed in later, or both. That's on you.
Mark's just going to be waving and doing sign language for the rest of the month. You should be nodding and everything.
I like it. It makes me realize that I have to roll up and light up for this episode.
Yeah, for real.
How
I'm
have you guys been doing since the great meetup?
fantastic, actually.
I've been going through withdrawals.
Me too. I miss you guys so bad.
Yeah, I missed you guys too. I had fun. I had a really good time, and I needed that like bad.
It needed to be
Same.
like 2 weeks though.
Right?
Yeah, yeah. Next time. That was just the icebreaker.
And next time, maybe Brittany will be there.
Brittany.
Which one?
Ah,
Maybe Brittany will be there next time.
yeah.
Mark, are you there with sound?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's a normal
not-
secret society of good guys initiation for there to be sound problems.
Yeah, usually.
Oh,
So yeah, welcome.
well, I'm coming through loud and clear though, right?
Perfect. Yes, you sound wonderful. And welcome all the audience to the chat. Thank you guys for being here. Love out to Secret Society of Good Guy, Gordy. He will be back after he gets some beauty rest, and we will talk to him very, very soon. For anyone wondering about Gordy out there, he is alive and well and will be here to tell us all the deets shortly.
Yeah.
He's
Love you,
chilling with
Gordy.
owls.
He's learning how to fly
I
and
love
speak
it.
the language of the birds.
I love it.
Have you guys ever been approached by a secret society online?
No,
Like
but I've
totally corny, like where they write you one of those like, do you want to
join the Illuminati?
Yeah,
Yeah, I have.
I was told to go to one of the lodges and just ask to join because they thought I knew, valid information. They're like, you should just go to the lodge and just, speak to somebody and, maybe join the sisterhood. I'm like, oh yeah, cool, maybe. And he promised that he was gonna bring books, but he just never came back.
Which
So I was like,
sisterhood?
I think it's the Eastern Stars.
Okay, it's the one that
Yeah.
Abby's got.
Yeah.
I did get asked to join the Eastern Star, but I just thought I was kind of flippant, so I didn't really take it seriously because I
No, I
mentioned that I
meant
was a
that when I
rainbow
asked
girl.
you on the beach. I wasn't trying to be flippant about it.
I didn't think Masons are supposed to solicit though. At least for the regular old like Freemason, like the men version of Freemasons in America, it's a huge no-no to solicit. That's why the whole phrase is to ask one, be one.
Mm.
Well, that because she said, "Why don't you join?" That's what she said to me. She didn't ask me if I wanted.
Yeah.
I was more like, "Why
Yeah.
don't you join?"
Yeah, potato a little bit.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, the guy said, he's like, hey, like if you're really interested, just go. And I'm pretty sure like they'll, gladly like take you in and invite you with open arms because you seem to know a lot of information. I was like, oh, cool. I was like so excited. But then I was like looking into like both sides of like the the conspiracies of it. So it's like, no, they worship Lucifer. You're gonna be a Luciferian. And then the other side is like, no, they just like worship God and whoever God is to them. So I'm just like, I need to learn more information. So maybe y'all can teach me something.
They mainly p-hauled you. They were like, oh, you know so much. We're going to make you a 30-second degree.
Well,
that was the craziest
it felt like
part of
that.
the tale.
I was like, ooh, they want me to be part of their clan. I love it. I got my ego up and my pride up. I'm like, yeah, let me shut up. Let me stop.
It's
Calm
like
down,
almost
Layla.
it's almost like an internet password. Like if you guess enough to the right secret society member, they are like, oh my gosh, you know all of our secrets. And then they just let you become a member. They're like, you
that's
can go all the way
kind
to
of how
the
it can work.
30-second degree.
Because unless like there's certain lodges that don't take the best of records, so some people have ferreted that out, and if they can surmise what the secret handshakes and the passwords and all the things are, and to just say that you're from one of these lodges that just doesn't keep great records, then they kind of have to go on whether or not you know all the secret passwords and handshakes that you gave them. So there's some people that I've heard, and a couple that I've even talked to, they claim to have just like fully infiltrated, just gone to somewhere in California where they're a little bit more hippy dippy, and was just like, oh yeah, I'm 32nd degree, bingo bango, did all the right things, and they were just welcomed him into the lodge open arms.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what he got there. He probably heard about people, trying to raise money because they needed a car and stuff. So I doubt it was anything like salacious. But
So let me ask you a question. Is a lodge a church, or is it a meetup place? Is it a
it's
special
anything.
like
So now in the States and a lot of places, lodges have fixed brick and mortars, a big G on the front of the building, like they're there
yeah.
for a while. But a lodge could also just be, hey, let's meet up after midnight at this pub until we overthrow X, and then that is basically like a temporary lodge. And then as soon as your mission is over, then that lodge ceases to exist, and you set up shop elsewhere. But for typical Freemasonic lodges, like their work is never done because they're trying to make good men better and make the perfect person. So the ones that you see brick and mortar are the ones that'll be there forever.
Are they usually made like on a specific ley line, or are they close to a specific building that matters? Or
That's a
is it
good
just
question.
random?
I would say that in big cities, they get first dibs. I mean, the Freemasons are building all the other state, buildings and everything. They're coming to them to establish that. If you go, I went to downtown Chicago recently for the first
Uh-huh.
time, and every major building that's got like all those dope ass like 1920s style, like noir, art nouveau, like sort of like designs, they all have that big G somewhere on it, and a lot of them just have a huge plaque all about founded by this Freemasonic lodge, yada yada. So I mean, if they're the ones you're going to make the cool buildings, then they probably get to pick where they want their cool building too.
I wonder, because the whole like not Star Fort idea, but like I guess the energy of the city. I wonder if the lodge has something to do with like how the
Well,
town is set
one
up energy
example
wise.
one
I'm sorry.
example of this is with stone. So
Uh-huh.
there's different types of granite. Different granite have higher concentrations of quartz, and also different types of stone come from different areas. So,
Mhm.
one example, when you look at the base of the Statue of Liberty, the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument, and I believe one other building in Washington, D.C., they're all made with a type of granite that the Native Americans in the local area where this granite was quarried, they say that that's the flesh of giants and that a giant died and became that part of the ground. So, why the Masons would choose that stone over other stone, when you look at the official sources, they'll say like a lot of the granite came from New Hampshire or Vermont. But I'll tell you, they would have gone for the granite in Connecticut because it would have been half the price to ship it half the distance. So,
Interesting. The
yeah,
thing that comes into mind is like the walls have eyes, or the walls can, if these walls could speak, almost as like they probably still have some sort of life in them that can
right.
absorb
Well, and
something.
on the ley line point, if you have stone that's its whole existence has had energy, high concentrations of energy flowing through it, it's gonna emit that energy for probably millions of years theoretically. So,
That freaking makes sense.
So weird when you think about it, like the whole pink salt of it all and everything.
Yeah, even like quartz crystals, aquamarines, and that liveliness of that stone just has
if you
so
look
much
at
energy, gives off and takes in. So this being marble, it may be a more dense or more less dense. I don't know how,
Conductive.
yeah, how dense it is as a material. Is it more dense than a crystal? Is it less dense?
well, it
So
is a
that
crystal. It's like a matrix of crystal. So,
uh-huh.
essentially, it's like a nature's machine. It's like the nature creates what Wilhelm Reich recreated, right, artificially, which was this device that he called the orgone generator, and all it was non-conductive and conductive materials stacked together in a way that the energy would get trapped in the center, and then you would walk inside of it and you would get these healing benefits. So Mother
Hmm.
Nature does that with every earthquake and every volcano burst and every theoretical movement of the earth, right? However it moves. So, yeah, there's tons of energy in the ground and in our own bodies. That's why they've gone after the food supply in the way that they have. If you look at a lot of our foods, they're lacking in the key minerals. What are minerals? It's the same thing we're building our buildings out of, right? It's the same thing we're building
Yeah.
our bodies out of. So I would posit that maybe these stone structures, as Thomas said, the Masons have pick of the litter, on locations. They also have pick of the litter on what stone they use. Maybe they're building things that are going to have health benefits for their people, right? So they know,
Mhm.
like, okay, we're going to keep this energy within the family, so to speak, so that our club is strong while others don't know this secret. And I mean, you look at
Interesting.
the health crisis that we're having in the country, and I'm like, that's the weapon against us. Who created that? The same people that prospered in this time period where everything was built, the turn of the tree, right? So I don't know. I'm a
Yeah, I
little more
wonder.
paranoid than maybe paranoid American in some ways.
That happens a
Well,
lot, actually.
I wonder if they use lead paint in their walls to like
Real
block
quick,
out.
I think you're cracking a little bit, Mark. It's your microphone. I
Like a
don't know
little.
if it's your gain a little bit.
I'll turn it
Perfect. Thanks, Jay.
Yes, I wonder if they use lead paint in their walls to like block out harmful frequencies. Like that whole, you know, X-ray lead protection suits and
Well,
whatnot.
one interesting thing is that the actual lodge room inside a Masonic lodge usually has no windows. So that's that,
Ooh.
and in addition to being symbolic and practical of not allowing any light in or out, but the other thing too is that affects the
No
acoustics and how sound reverberates.
windows, just walls.
No, that's a good. Oh man, that's got to be in the catalog now.
I fucking love you.
Sorry, I wasn't even gonna say it. It was, and I was like, I can't help it.
Perfect.
Well, on that same note, I've seen tons of photos of Masons in deep inside of caves, which it goes right back to the point you made about the stone itself and the ley lines, right? So maybe they know something and they're trying to recreate it in the temple.
Yeah.
And I have to say, too, just from the Masonic lodges that I know, they aren't in the oldest buildings in town, but in that same kind of McDonald's way, they do have really great prime real estate. And I think that older Masons donated some of these buildings to the younger Masons. So it's like spots in town that are right in the downtown with a great building, or it's spots by the river, or it's not necessarily ancient anymore as much as maybe under the ground, something you're saying like
Well,
minerals in the ground, or
Well, make no
well,
mistake, that since the 1960s, Freemasonic membership's been in free fall. So if you look at like a chart of the population going up and the membership of Freemasons, you'd expect it to at least be influenced by the uptick, and it's not at all. It's literally just like a straight line down.
Yeah,
So
but
at this point, even the really nice Masonic lodges, they rent themselves out to birthday parties, bowling, anything that you could put together. In fact, a lot of Masonic lodges now are like famous venues for music for that exact reason, because they can't afford to keep the lights on and just meet once a week with
Can I
the
ask
current
you?
membership levels.
Can I ask you, do you think that is because of because of the overall societal like population boom? The boomer generation kind of was maybe the last generation that really partook in that kind of thing, and since then it's kind of fallen off the radar. Would you
Honestly, I
say
think as soon as anyone could get a credit card was the downside of Freemasonry. There's a long story behind that, but the dates and the practicality all line up, because it's kind of what Freemasonry was originally. It was like the LinkedIn. So if you wanted to move across country, you had like a reference where you could tell people, hey, you can look into me, people know that I'm good for my word and whatnot. And if
right?
you were just some random bumpkin, you couldn't really do that.
Right. Yeah, it's networking, but that's why they call them traveling men, right? Like the traveling salesmen, right? And
Yep.
I guess my point was more to like add to what you're saying is like we see corporations now taking the place that secret societies once held in society, and specifically
And
like
unions.
investment firms and those sorts of companies. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to think like, the Freemasonic secrets that, were preserved since possibly hypothetically biblical times have been just let loose for everybody, right? I feel like that's really what it is. It's not that the secret societies aren't popular anymore. It's more that there aren't as many secrets to keep. Do you think that's the case, Thomas? Like all the
No, not at all. I think there's
public?
more secrets than ever to keep, and there's more noise than ever to keep burying, crap on top of, keep burying the swine on top of the pearls. Since I can't think of a better analogy.
Mm.
So yeah, the secrets have always been the same, but we keep getting further and further removed, even in the depths of Freemasonry, which hopefully they don't cut my my neck for saying any of this. But the big payoff is that, like, oh, and by the way, we've lost all the secrets too. Like, we're all on this big mission to find what that ineffable name of God was. Like, someone knew it at some point and it was magic AF, but we forgot about it. So help us look. That's sort of, the big premise.
It's
If you
like the
just
moon
read the final
landing
page.
stuff. It's like we lost all the information. We accidentally put it in the wrong file.
Could it be all right? And maybe I should wait for some of you to smoke to catch up, because I clearly I've gotten really baked before all of you. But here's
I'm
a
lit.
high
I want to
idea.
get litter.
Here's a
No,
high
this is how high I am. Nephilim.
All right, Thomas, you say they're looking for the word of God, right? Or the name of God, right? And I'm not a biblical scholar, but pretty sure that's what Genesis says, right? Where the first thing that happened was God spoke and he created everything with that word. So could it be that we've we're looking for a word when really it's a metaphor for some sort of technology that can create like a whole universe, or technology
Oh,
that
of course. Yeah, I never think that it's like a literal word and someone's just trying to figure out what the word is. That wouldn't make any sense to me, but that's the best metaphor that they've got.
Right. So it's
Okay.
some sort of genetic technology, maybe what China's doing in secret labs, right?
I mean, that's very specific, so maybe.
All
I
right.
think word is vague enough that it's easy to agree with, but when you start saying like a Chinese technology, I don't know if the word would even imply like a nation to exist. Like, it would be like saying, technology from Pangea. I don't know, maybe.
Well, I'm in the secret society, good guys. So I mean, I'm not jumped in yet. I'm just probing. I'm
After the
asking
show.
questions. So please, if you guys have any umbrage with my question or my line of questions, just stop me.
I have a question though.
Hit me.
Okay, secret,
You're allowed to
all
ask it as
secret.
long as it has nothing to do with Mark being a man.
Oh, no. We're good. We're good. But for real, okay, secrets. Okay, we gotta keep the secrets. Why these fucking rituals? Like, why this hoodoo, voodoo? Why these blood sacrifices? If they're doing any, why are they like? Why for what?
Well,
Like,
ritual is not the same as blood sacrifice. I mean, a blood sacrifice
it's part
is a
of a
ritual.
ritual.
The way that a rectangle is, or a square is a rectangle. You know what I mean?
Uh huh.
But I would think rituals is because it makes such a bigger impact. Like, if you're ever doing memory work, usually you want to link every memory to a number of senses, not just memorizing it, but if you can link smells, sights, feelings, music, all these different things, it helps you memorize something better. So a
like,
ritual,
why
in my
go
mind, is
through-
just like a memory technique.
Why go through the ritual of putting a Christmas tree up every Christmas? It's the tradition.
But
It's the culture.
yeah, but what is like? Who is the ritual for? Is it for self? Is it for
Oh,
the
it's-
higher power? Is it for Lucifer or Lucifer, the light bringer? And who is that? Because that's what everyone claims, Masonry is about, the light bringer and the light. So it's like a confusing because I'm very fascinated about it. I'm very interested in it.
I think
But
it
it's
adds
like,
intention. It makes everything more powerful once you add intention to it.
okay,
It's just like being a child. Like the second you're counting numbers and you're adding a special dish and a special sage to clear rooms, and we're all chanting the same thing. And now
Right.
it's adding the 2 in my name it shall be spell. And so the 2 in my name it shall be, and then you add it's always true if it's 3. So now there might be 8 of us chanting the same thing with the same intention. And so I think that makes it more powerful. And then if we're in certain spots all over the country or all over the world and we know certain times and we were to all chant at the same time, how much more powerful would that become? And so I think there's these levels and rituals. And if we knew where the planets were and where the stars were, how much more powerful would that become? And so if we could hide that information from our other groups, if we knew it was a real thing, and we could hide all the information from the other societies that might have power, that's where I think it all lies. Is it's almost like we're in warring factions
so
of
why are they
secret
so
societies.
selfish with the information to humanity? Is it like too much for humanity to
Humanity
handle?
can't handle the truth.
Yeah, not everybody deserves the truth either.
What if it?
Well, that's true. I agree with that.
There's levels. It's just like learning the trivium. Like in Greek philosophy or whatever, you had to learn the trivium before you were ever allowed to learn philosophy. So reading, writing, and rhetoric, right? Is that what it was? I don't know. I don't remember.
Well, it's grammar, logic, and rhetoric.
Thank you. I knew rhetoric was one of the words. I knew the big word.
I knew the word that mattered.
Yeah, but you had to learn the trivium before you learn the quadrivium. Is that what it's called?
Mhm.
I know the concepts.
What is the trivium
the
and what is
important
the quadrivium?
Let's get into it, Thomas, because obviously you know better than me. So
Oh man, this is on so the trivium is the 3, the quadrivium is the 4, and trivium starts with grammar, logic, rhetoric in that exact order, because first you have to know what words are and what the definitions of words are. So that's grammar. Then you have to understand logic, which is the like when these words are in this particular order, what does that mean? And does the thing that it's saying actually make sense? That's logic. And then rhetoric is kind of like reading between the lines. It's saying like, okay, I understand what the words mean. I understand the order that they're in. I understand the logic that's being presented, but is there like an alternate agenda behind this logic? Or is the logic faulty? And if so, is it faulty on purpose? That's kind of like an oversimplification of rhetoric, but this is like how politicians learn how to talk, how salesmen learn how to talk, the way that you can just it's the way that you say the content of what you're saying. That's kind of the rhetoric aspect. And once you learn those 3, then you're allowed to get into everything else, which, man, I don't know if I know the quadrivium by heart, but it's like math, music, astronomy, and Mark, do you have it pulled up? It looks like you're looking at something.
I did pull up my tab. Not to do that.
But you're not allowed to learn. Philosophy was the highest. Sorry.
It's
philosophy is
like
the highest level,
math,
and you weren't allowed to just go into philosophy.
Music, astronomy.
Most people never got there. They weren't allowed to sit around and philosophize. It was just the people who had graduated from the trivium and then the quadrivium, and then you were allowed to learn philosophy.
Yeah, it's geometry.
Because how would you possibly know how to philosophize until you learned the other stuff?
Well, you had to know all 7 of those classic liberal arts before you were allowed to start getting into philosophy. Like those were just like the prerequisite courses.
Yeah.
And look at what happens today. We have people philosophizing on TikTok, coming up with all kinds of wild theories, and they haven't even done their basic trivium.
That's my favorite one. Is like it's like if you're gonna tell me about mall aliens and like the true nature of being, first sit me down and like explain like really deep theoretical physics or something to me, because that's also part of the quadrivium before you get to the
biological species and like how feasible it would even be to have that type of species in bipedal form.
This one right here with the extra fingers and
yeah, this is a mall aliens going awry, but if you look in the background, there's no need to fear because Donut's there.
Hey, Donut.
Oh, cool.
What up, Donut?
Wow.
Okay, sorry to get you off track. Back to it.
He really is a good guy. Look at that.
Mall aliens always, it's like that's like a whole type of alien now. It's like there's grays and the Aryans and all the and mall aliens, Miami mall
The
aliens.
Zetas, the mall aliens, yeah.
Aryans, Arians, but we'll talk about
guys-
that another day.
Have you ever heard of Craig Campobasso's Extraterrestrial Species Guide?
No.
All right, so he has gone around the internet and collected some of the hunkiest aliens from across the galaxy and put them together in this this guide. And I was expecting to find, like, you know, a nerdy cryptid handbook, and I ended up finding this very saucy, romantic seeming, not for me, but if you're into aliens, and not just men too, there's some babes in there, some
I'm
aliens.
feeling a
It's
new
aliens-
Paranoid American
alien-
calendar.
The
So-
one I was working on kind of became illegal, so now I'm working on a new one.
But Craig
Oh.
has, I think, over 145 unique species that have been eyewitnessed throughout human history. So there's a ton. I don't know if Miami Nephilim has been added yet, though. That's in the second edition.
Miami Nephilim. That's a new band name.
They all got hoop earrings.
They all got chanclas and hoop earrings. That would be perfect. We always Mason. What about the Boule? What are your guys' thoughts?
The
on
hule?
the Hule, I know it's a name you can't mention because it got so Gatored attached to Boule. But it used to be Larry Gators was one of the only dudes who was like, hey, here's all this Boule stuff. And you used to be able to find a little bit, Dick Gregory would say, on it. But it does seem like something that we don't really talk about unless there is a person of color in the room. So what are your guys' thoughts on the Boule Society or Black fraternities?
I've never heard of it.
FYI, I just will
Oh.
sideswipe myself before that question. I've hung out with Layla for a little bit, so if you're out there and you need a professional blunt roller one day and you can afford her skills, I've always been a person that I hold my skills pretty high when it comes to that, but I'm a great delegator. And so I was like, oh, Layla, you can roll all the joints and blunts while we hang out. And they were all so nice and they burnt for such a long time. And so if you can afford her skills,
Hit me up, like for real. Like the blunt will last you an hour.
yeah, sometimes we're like, we'll just smoke this real quick and then we'll go to where we need to go. And it was
Yo,
like
call Snoop
1
real
hour
quick.
later.
So to answer your question, so the Boule might be better known as Sigma Pi Phi. So it's the oldest Black Greek letter fraternity. And personally, I haven't really gone down this rabbit hole, but if they're anything like Skull and Bones, a fraternity that I have researched, it's essentially, you know, what Thomas was describing with the Freemasons. It's networking, but on an upper echelon of society. You know, we're talking about people who have the money at the time to get, you know, advanced degrees, and then they're able to join this sort of alumni group that, you know, if you're in the know, it's going to help you have a great career and also probably give you some political power, which, you know, during the civil rights movement and whatnot was probably a rare thing for Black men to come by. So yeah, I think this was essentially like a Black advocacy fraternity at the kind of outward stance of it, but maybe on the inward stance of it, they have rituals and weird sorts of rites and branding each other and all sorts of maybe cover-ups and things like that. I'm just
Wasn't there a lot of
speculating.
attachments to LeBron James, but then there was the guy that everyone said was the twin with George Floyd, and
Yeah.
he was Boule as well, and they also were, I don't know why I attached them, but I feel like something maybe at the club they were working at or the block they worked at, besides it being ran by whatever the Muslim Brotherhood politician's name is, her name's escaping my mind. The Goodfellas Society was also like linked to this whole area, which is a whole nother secret society that has almost like Olympic rings if you look up their symbolism. Not to throw in all these secret societies and just like jump away from the Boule, but the buck broken is one of the Boule things that we hear over and over again, to buck break, and it also is a term that goes back into slavery. And I think it's something that's very Aleister Crowleyan, is to like think of, if I can bend you over and take away your masculinity through your asshole, then it's not sexual all the time.
It's if it's magical, then it's not sexual.
But isn't there something, and a lot of the times where it's the most demeaning thing I can do to you. It's like, in a power way, I'm showing you that you are like a bitch. Like, you're so low. It's not even that I'm just, oh, I'm gay. Like, I know this sounds so wacky, but I know different people from different sects of the world, and they like, prison sex isn't always gay. Sometimes it's for power. And I don't know if this necessarily exists with women, but I do think it exists with men, where it's like, I don't know, a big dog to a little dog thing. I can hump you if I want to. Like, I don't know if there's anything more powerful I could do to you as a man to another man, except grab you by the back of your neck and make you my bitch. And
I think it's gay.
sometimes it's that.
I'll go out on a limb and say it's still gay, even in prison.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's the most powerful thing a man can do for another man. I think maybe that would
Not
be
for
like,
another man, to another man,
to
like
another
to show, not for another man.
well, yeah, I should be careful with my words. Maybe in a very dark, twisted control paradigm sort of way. Sure. I mean, that's what blackmail's all about. That's what jumping people into a gang is all about. You want to have, something secret, or something that they want to keep secret over their head to keep control over them. So
Is it lost on you that you said black male? And so I just think maybe it's
that
something
was
that
weird
exists in
too.
the black
Like,
male society that maybe doesn't exist in white males. That it's like a power thing, because this is where I've heard it from, and I didn't want to just out all like the black guys I know that have been to prison. They're like, bitch, how many of us do you know? But it seems different in certain cultures.
well, because the whole black fraternity thing, like, not just like, because I actually interviewed my coach today, because he's a member of the black fraternity, and it's based on, it's Greek obviously, but like, it is definitely African, and it's based on slavery, like their traditions, their rituals, their, little things, they are based on like representing their ancestors and the slavery of it all. And but their thing is that they believe that by doing the ritual things and stuff like that, they're honoring their ancestors, and that will help them to be rewarded to have a greater life. So, but like the whole idea, the hazing behind it all, like, they're not, the white fraternities and stuff, they're allowed to say, oh, I'm pledging to this fraternity. Like, they do Greek week, and then they're like, oh, I'm a pledge for this fraternity. It's like, that's not a black fraternity thing at all. Like, they're not allowed to say anything. So they're going through their whole first semester of school, and they don't even know how long it's going to be, because it's not even a designated amount of time. So it's like, it could be anywhere. It's whenever you're ready. So they break you completely down until, they get rid of all your bullshit. But like his particular fraternity, I kind of like their mission statement though, because it's they believe they'd be devoted to the inclusive we rather than the exclusive we. So like, they're black, but they're probably one of the only black fraternities that does have some white people in it, but they're really about, they're not going to judge you based on your parents or your family or your neighborhood or anything like that. It's all about you
that's
and
why
your character.
important to understand that secret societies as a human construct have existed
Goddamn motherfucker.
throughout all different ages. And hope you're okay.
Is everything all right over there? Oh, you're all right there,
Everything
darling.
okay?
I had the worst hamstring cramp just now. I thought I was gonna die. I thought I muted
It
myself. I was
was
like,
about to come
should I
out.
go off camera? Turn
You
my mic
didn't mute
off.
yourself, and then I was like, "Oh shit, I gotta pay attention. Do I have to mute her right now?"
Oh, that was bad. That was really painful. Holy shit.
So, okay.
One
Are-
of the downfalls of being all cut up.
So all of these, I guess, secret societies are mainly to help society out, but some of them, or some of the members that are in them, aren't doing nice things for
I
society.
wouldn't say even that. I mean, you look at you look at societies in general, and you look at history. What have societies done? They've fought and killed other societies. I mean, human society isn't necessarily based on any moral compass in a general scope of things. So why would secret societies be, right? So like we
Yeah.
look at our history, and sure, there have been people who have broken the mold, and spiritual figures who have shown that there is a certain moral path to follow. And I would argue that the moral secret societies are probably rarer, fewer and far between than the altogether nefarious politically motivated ones. But I mean, even the politically motivated ones, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're beheading goats and doing all kinds of other disgusting things.
Is that even so bad? Because
Well,
I mean, unless you've never eaten a goat burger in your entire life.
Not if you're Jamaican.
If you're gonna
Yeah,
kill
exactly.
an animal to eat it, and you want to say a prayer beforehand, I think, yeah, that's a totally human thing. But if you're gonna do some sort
Have you
of,
never thrown out half of a hamburger or a hot dog in your entire life?
I'm not saying that you shouldn't waste it. I'm sure that happens. Okay, you shouldn't, but I'm not in it. It's not inexcusable. But sadism is, right.
Maybe, I don't know, man. I don't.
And
It's
I
like,
don't think
what's the difference
that
between
anybody
the
would
guy
condone
working
the
in the
animals, right? So
slaughterhouse that really likes his job versus the one that works next to him that hates his job? Like,
well,
does
it's
one cow
not
die with
even
more dignity?
Yeah, but it's not even animals, and that's factory farms. That's a different conversation. But when we're talking about secret societies and what's done behind closed doors for ritual purposes, I would argue that, yeah, it is probably more prevalent than you'd think. I would say maybe more secret societies are up to no good than secret societies are up to good. But it's a spectrum of nefarity, right? It's a spectrum of badness. So, but there are secret societies of good people too. I mean, here we're in one right now. The Shaolin monks, I haven't heard anything bad about them. They're a secret society. So
That's
yeah,
true.
I mean, there's tons of secret societies that aren't, coercing their, adepts and whatnot to do illegal things.
Is part of the
Well,
secret
legality. I mean, it's just a gray area, right?
What's
is
their
part of the
purpose,
secret
though?
just what we're up to back here? Like, it's not that people know we exist. It's just what we got going on behind our closed doors.
Well, that's what I want to know. Like, what's the purpose of all this? Like, why? Okay, we all know they exist, but we all know they keep secrets. What's the fucking secret?
Well, it's like
Like,
anything that two people conspire to do requires a certain level of secrecy. Some things don't require that much secrecy. If Thomas and I conspired to go get a burger from a restaurant, we don't have to be secret about it. We could tell people about it. But if Thomas and I were conspiring to take over Washington, D.C., that would require a lot of secrecy. We would have to tactically and strategically plan that for a long time. And we wouldn't. We would never do something like that. I don't know why I would even choose DC as an example. Bad
Well,
example. But you
I-
get my
I also-
point here.
Yeah, but I don't. I
I'm
think
still
it
not
comes
getting the
down
why.
to the why
Like,
is that
what?
not
What is
People,
it? Angelic? information?
people will
Not
stop.
everyone deserves to be a part of it. That's the
Uh-huh.
point. The point is not everyone deserves to know. So unless you've gone through the initiation process and you've done, all the vetting that has to be done to become a member of the society, you don't necessarily deserve to know these things. Like, I'm giving you power. Is that a good idea for me to hand that over to you if you can't prove that you're worthy of it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
but
I think that's what
is
it
that
is.
an actuality, or is that just the illusion? Is that just how they
It isn't a fraternity. I can tell you that, especially the Black fraternities. They definitely, that's the whole idea. If you
So-
can't make it through that period, then you shouldn't be there.
But
So
I also
is the
don't know
secrets-
if it's power as much as like, do we want this person to come and like live with us? Do we want them to be part of our community?
Yeah, it's vetting though, and that's what vetting is. Period. Right? It's both.
Well, and
So
it's on
are
a
this-
range of spectrum. So, like, you could have a group that wants to make society a better place, and that requires a deal of, selection and exclusivity. Then you can have a gang of criminals who want to form a secret society because they want exclusivity, but for a different reason, because they don't want to be caught, right? So, essentially, I'm trying to answer your question in a way that is kind of general, but that's the problem with this is like humans do a multitude of things, and they'll use secret societies for a multitude of reasons.
Okay. So the main question that I want to know is the information that the higher ups of these societies, not just the basic like lodges that we have here, but like the grand lodges, like the main ones. Now, is the information that they're hiding, is it manipulation, how to manipulate your reality here on earth? Is it angelic jinn, maybe magic that they're hiding from people to manifest things that they want in life? Like that's the ultimate question that I want to know, is what is the information that they're hiding that is so secret that only a handful of people are allowed to know?
Well,
Well,
I think
some of it is just like me and let's say 20 of us, and we have good jobs and we have good connections, and we want to know, running through the ritual, that no matter what, you trust us. So if you feel like a gun's to your head and you're blindfolded, you trust me. If you feel like you're squeezing shit in a toilet bowl, you trust me. If you feel like you're about to walk to your doom, you trust me. So eventually you've let go of all the trust of everything from the outside world, and your reverence now belongs to me. Once I have your reverence and you have my reverence, now we might help each other get a job. Now we might help each other. I might want to hook you up with a house in a certain neighborhood over the next guy because I know you're, in the grand scheme of things, you're brothers with like my brethren. You do the same
You're
thing
on the
I
level.
do. So it might not necessarily always be big, huge secrets to the esoteric. Sometimes it might just be my pool and clout in life. And if we all have pool and clout and power, we don't want to give that to just any dildo.
Cheney, you should pull up the chat. Jay said something kind of funny.
Red Hoods, secret societies, or Handmaid's Tale. all of the above. I don't know.
Of Cheney.
I think
Of Thomas.
And what do we say? Oh, what is it? Blessed is the fruit
I know. Under his eye.
under his eye.
The Handmaid's Tale is kind of a secret society. I feel
It
like
is.
that's the juxtaposition that they're setting up against the pink pussy hat. Like, we can't decide on our pronoun people. They're setting up the Handmaid's Tale Mike Pence. Like, it's those are the two sides of the bird. They're like, oh my gosh, look what's gonna happen if that side wins, and the other side's like, look what's gonna happen if that side wins, and they're like, oh my gosh, we should secession.
So does this secret society stuff stem from Egypt? Since there's a lot of Egypt hieroglyphs and symbology connection to the occult.
I'd say
Do y'all
so.
know? Yeah. Does it stem
Well,
from there, or does it predate that?
kind of goes back to what we were saying before. So one of the things that I noticed in your comment is it sounds to me like you're assuming, and Don't get me wrong.
Because I don't know. I'm genuinely asking.
I would say that the secret societies, big secret societies, they're not working together. Okay. So that's one
Okay.
thing that we have to understand is like there's different factions at work
Yes.
at play. Some of them trace their roots back to Egypt because that's where some of the oldest written records from humanity come from. So, and some of the most advanced stuff too. I mean, you could talk about the pyramids and the different megaliths and how humanity can't reconstruct them today, and there's evidence right there of advanced information. So there's clearly a situation going on in that area: Mesopotamia, Babylon, Egypt, even Greece and Rome, where there's secret information that's probably been, to my best guess, I'm not saying this is fact, but to my best guess, they are keeping secrets that are pre-biblical, that are pre-flood, from this
Yes, they
ancient
are.
civilization that was a precursor before the flood. And that's one of the big, golden sort of taboo subjects that you see getting kind of mocked and dismissed a lot. And I think
Yeah.
that's because the people mocking and dismissing it are either coerced or are in the know, but they're meant to think that humanity started at a certain time, and before that we were just Stone Age, or we were just etc. I don't really buy into that. I think that's part of what
Same.
the secret societies are covering up. But again, the secret societies, big secret societies, this topic, this all pervasive group is not just one group, it's multiple groups. And I think part of the major secret society, what they're really moving pawns around on the chessboard towards, is globalism. They want a new world order, and that's why the corporations are moving in the steps that they're moving. They want to subjugate certain parts of the world, and create whole resource areas that are just for their access only, while the rest of us are confined to essentially these like feudal kind of zones, right? The smart
Mhm.
city idea, where all the national park land is under government control, and the resources and all of it, and the government manages it all. This is something that I think, if you look at the history of governments, it's moving towards globalism. Communism, fascism, these are just two wings of the same bird. Secret societies were at the beginning of every single revolution in the past 2000 years. And I think that's inherently because they're moving pieces on the chessboard towards having a global dominion, a global control. So, not good stuff, if you ask me.
Huh.
What about Chinese or Far East secret societies? We always talk about the same. Doesn't it feel like even in the world of conspiracy, we have this huge uneducation with China?
Well, even
Mm.
even the Native Americans, my girlfriend just texted me and reminded me, I guess she's watching. Even the Native Americans had secret societies. So this is like a inherently human thing. But yeah, good point. Do we ever know much about the Eastern secret societies? The Freemasons, they made their way into Japan, into China, into the Philippines. So you could argue that Western secret societies have already kind of infiltrated certain aspects of Asia, maybe other aspects like Tibet, or different enclaves, maybe in Mongolia. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, I'm sure.
Have
Thomas,
you
do you
have
know
you
much
guys ever
about
heard
it?
of Benjamin Fulford?
No.
No, I haven't.
He was a financial analyst, I believe, and he moved over to Japan. And the long story about this dude. He's got a lot of interesting claims, but he said that there's a secret society in Japan and perhaps outside in the rest of Asia called the White Dragon Society, and he described them as being like the white hat version of the Illuminati, and that this White Dragon Society is constantly fighting back all the nefarious secret societies all across the world.
Well,
It
and that
sounds like it's straight out of a comic book because it is. I believe there's literally a Marvel comic book that has a group called the White Dragon Society that does this in Japan, but he claims it's real and that the comic was based on a real thing.
Well, and that's the thing, fiction imitates life, right? But I think or art imitates life. But I think when it comes to you the secret society layout, right? The factions, there's definitely people that are fighting for good. I think that we wouldn't be in the world we are today if only the bad guys had secret societies. But I think Thomas brings up a good point, and the whole White Dragon uh, group. I don't know, kind of makes me think of this book that I have called "The Return of the Serpents of Wisdom," I think. And his claim is that after the flood, this group of like serpent people, you could maybe think that that's reptilians, or you could say maybe these people just revered the snake. But either way, they went around and taught all these different cultures some advanced stuff. And he kind of points at mythology and says, like, look at how all these different cultures have serpents in their mythology, from South America to North America to Africa to Asia. All these different cultures around the same time have stories of this dragon being or serpent being with wings that comes and gives them some sort of information, or even sticks around and acts like a god, and people learn a tremendous deal from him.
I
Quite
touched a white dragon on the face in a dream, just like this. Just stuck my hand out, let me touch it, and it was the
Ooh,
most
dope.
powerful, badass thing ever.
Have you guys ever heard of the Yellow Emperor of China?
Mm-mm.
So apparently, the Yellow Emperor was the first proper emperor of China, and they say that he came down from the heavens as a yellow dragon, and he led China for like something like 100 years or so, which was a long life back then. I think it might have even been longer. But then he didn't die; he just flew back up into the sky and left. And this was around what historians call the Axial Age, when humanity as a whole was evolving, advancing maybe with certain technologies like chariots and uh, writing and all these other things that kind of happened around the same time. And maybe that's because they were remembering, and putting the pieces back together from this old advanced age. Maybe it's because aliens came here and taught them some stuff. I mean, I tend to think it's not what the Ancient Alien show portrays, because otherwise they wouldn't put it on the History Channel. But I think there's a little seed of truth there to pull people into the disinfo, right? So
Yeah.
maybe it's because these beings are interdimensional, so they have to make it physical and say, oh no, they came from really, really far away, and it would take multiple human lifetimes to get there, so don't worry about them. Maybe they're saying that because they want us to feel comfortable and not think like, oh God, they're underground, they're underneath us.
These serpent beings kind of remind me of like the whole idea of jinn and like people being possessed by them. And when I see them in these videos and in the Islamic world, they have this like very snaky I don't want to say reptilian, but it's very serpent like feel to them, even when they speak. So it's very interesting. I don't know if it's reptilian again, but they have this like a very serpent like energy feel to them when they reveal themselves,
You
when
know,
they
what's
bring the jinn up.
interesting is in certain Islamic countries, you could still be hung for being a witch. Like all
Yeah.
5 of us would be murdered by the government for even participating in this podcast if we were in
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia. And I
Ah,
wonder,
I love that. It makes me smile that there's still places that would burn me as a witch.
but I wonder if
It just made me feel more powerful. Like,
For real.
what
like
if that type of societal atmospheric pressure, like consciously in the collective consciousness, is so much pressure that it makes those experiences more vivid, where in our culture we're kind of like, oh yeah, that's silly, that's fairy
Yeah.
tale stuff. Whereas there, like, there's a physical punishment. Like you could die if you even
Yes.
talk about these beings. It's much realer if you think about it, like in that sense. So
Yeah.
I wonder if that contributes to it, like on a collective consciousness level.
Wasn't that just for like the
And
poor people too? Like that doesn't apply to like the rich class that wants to practice witchcraft
yeah,
in Saudi
the
Arabia.
poor too. Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sure they could get away with all kinds of stuff.
Because it's
yeah.
like being gay in Russia, right? Like it only matters if you're like too broke to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Like around where we're from, they call them magistad, like magistad, like a magician, and they're wear their red capes. They're all in red, and they, call on the jinns. And an interesting thing is that these jinns actually do submit to God, which is a weird thing. They claim to work with the power of God. So I don't know if these beings are just lower dimensional beings that just are a different density or
What I
energy.
gathered, and I could be totally wrong, you'll probably know the whole thing, is that they do answer to God. They just didn't think we were greater than them, so they wouldn't bow to us.
Hmm.
And so their whole gig is just to prove to God that we are not superior to them because they were the greatest thing God ever created, not us.
Well, in that sense, like when you think about it, you are more powerful than they are because they need you as a vessel. They need you to conjure them. They need you to tell them what to do or send them to business or a goal or a magic spell, whatever the case may be. So, yeah, I think the density or whatever type of being it is, from my understanding where we're from, they can conjure the jinn and literally have it travel in Mercury. So whatever type of energy that this is, it could be an electrical energy or an etheric energy. I'm not sure, but it's wild. It's fucking wild.
On the white dragon, I want to just bring up because we're about to go into the wood dragon. And this is a little off topic for a second, but we're about to go into the wood dragon. And, on the Secret Society of Good Guys, we know that dragon is synonymous with worm. And so every time they say wood or worm, it's also dragon when you find it in ancient lore. In the way I was thinking of woodworm or wormwood, and it was making me think of absinthe. And
Hmm.
it was making me think, are we headed into this idea of a heroic dose for everyone? Is it soft disclosure for everyone in this way that they're about to melt their sugar cube into their nasty licorice tasting drink and do their shot, so to speak, like a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, is from absinthe? That's what the whole term was
Oh,
about.
crap.
Wow.
And so, we have this whole Mary Poppins of it all, and there's something about Mary. And so, are we leading into this wormwood or wood dragon year where it's a great epiphany or an apocalypse, so to speak? And like a Chinese New Year, they put the one fake thing that doesn't exist in the world at all. But we were also talking about on the Thulan, is it Thuban or Thuban, the star that's on the Hoover Dam that's going to be above the pyramid that the Egyptians used to
Oh yeah.
say was the North Star?
Yes.
So some people theorize that maybe, the planet shifted or something, and maybe there was a different North Pole. And a lot of people that theorize that America was the first and that something tilted and they can find ancient artifacts in the Grand Canyon. If Thuban if the Nile was actually in America and the Mississippi used to flow backward and all this stuff is so, are we about to do that flip back to where we get a different North Star instead of the dog star? So in the dogma, the god of it all, like it's about to do the reverse.
I mean, anything's possible. I am open to it all happening. Like, could be. What if? Maybe so. I'm not saying no. I'm out there, like it could be a possibility, and the history proves it.
And I
In
think
a
we're going
sense.
from a water rabbit to a wood dragon. Like, think of the energetic difference of that.
Yeah, from liquid to solid.
From liquid to solid, and then from a rabbit, like little prey breeding animal, to this huge, heavy dragon wood energy. And then the wood, you could also get into the Odin and the Woden of it all. Knock on wood, knock on Odin, like you're asking, like, oh. So it's just interesting to me the way I think all of these things attach. And yeah. So we're almost to the year. I think that's February 10th or something.
So, okay.
Back to the secret society. Sorry to get you so off top.
No. Now with this dragon and everything that's happening in the world, what's the difference? What does the Illuminati know versus the Freemasons? Is that like one and the same? Or are they two different types of?
Illuminati. I just want to say that because of Thomas. Sorry.
Illuminati.
So are the Illuminati like more blood sacrifice versus ritual like the Masons? So what's the difference between the two? And is the Illuminati real?
Well, can we go back into the whole, were you solicited to join the Illuminati? Have any of you guys been on social media? Like,
on Instagram,
hey,
of course.
Yeah. What did you guys say? Did you say anything to him?
I was like, oh yeah, talk to me about it on my podcast, because I was like, Instagram, I like got a message. But as far as I know, Thomas has like one of the best books on the Illuminati. I'm really jealous because it's like $150 if anyone wants to buy it from me on
What's
Amazon.
the book?
Thomas,
Yeah, which one?
You know,
well, I've got a number. I've got the School of Wisdom. I've got the Perfectibilist. I've got Philo's Reply.
I'm talking
about
what you're talking about?
What are these books?
The big heavy book that's all about the Bavarian Illuminati.
Oh, yeah, that one's just called Bavarian Illuminati, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's Bavarian Illuminati.
That's the Illuminati. Like, so to answer your question about Freemasons and Illuminati, I'll give you the historical answer, because I don't know if I would say that the modern 2024 Illuminati exists outside of people that use the same tactics exist. But the Bavarian Illuminati from the 18th century, they were founded in 1776. My understanding is they were mostly atheists. They were like anti-religion. They wanted to find the scientists, the experts in all these different fields, and they might feign being religious, because they kind of were living under this transition of the Jesuits running all of academia to now the Jesuits no longer running academia, because the Pope basically was like, we've had enough of this Jesuit nonsense. You guys aren't running the show anymore. So the Bavarian Illuminati started in that sort of a little segue. And there was another really important aspect that doesn't get brought up very often, and it explains the blending between the Illuminati and Freemasons. And that's that around that same time, there was this lodge of strict observance, and they were kind of like the big lodge in the area of Bavaria. That almost rhymes. And in this area of Bavaria, the lodge of observance, they basically came out and they said, look, guys, a lot of you think that Freemasons tie themselves all the way back to the Knights Templar, and that you all want to play and pretend that you're part of the Knights Templar, but we're not going to do that anymore, because there's not enough links to it. And when people bring it up, we look like idiots scrambling to just like connect dots that don't exist. And we're supposed to be these all-knowing, like very authoritative, people in the Freemasons. So therefore, everyone stop talking about the Templars. We don't belong to the Templars. We can't trace our lineage of Templars. Cut it out. And there was a lot of Freemasons that were like, that was the coolest part. Like, I wanted to be a Templar. You saying I can't be a Templar anymore? You say my grandpa wasn't a Templar? So when this happened, this is at the convent of Wilhelmsbad, I believe. And essentially, this was a crazy. If you even look this on Wikipedia, it's fully documented. But the Congress of Wilhelmsbad, all these different factions of Freemasonry get together. The Vatican send their representatives there, and the Bavarian Illuminati sends their people there. And after they all make this big convention, and they decide, okay, collectively, nobody's allowed to claim the Knights Templar anymore, the freaking Bavarian Illuminati went to all those Freemasons that were disgruntled and complaining, and they were like, yo, guys, if you want to still claim Knights Templar, like, we got the club for you. Like, we got all that and more. Are you sick of just 3 degrees? are you sick of just 30 degrees? We got like 90 degrees up in here. Just follow me. You know, it's
Oh,
it's
wow.
everything that you know. And what they would do is they would target people that were high up in the lodges all around Bavaria. And if you got to the worshipful master, or if you got to the senior deacon or the junior deacon, or hell, all three, then you could own that lodge. And now none of the rest of the members of that lodge would necessarily even have to know that they were essentially operating under the Bavarian Illuminati. And that's how they spread. So in modern terms, the Freemasons still exist. I don't think the Illuminati exists. I think the Illuminati died with Adam Weishaupt, and also I think it got reabsorbed back into Masonry. There's a specific branch called the Rites of Memphis and Mizraim, and they connect themselves to the Knights Templar. They connect themselves to ancient Egypt, and they still hold on to 99 degrees, probably more.
Oh, wow.
And just to maybe add a little bit, so Thomas, when did that end for Adam Weishaupt? When did those guys all start to die away? What year time frame?
Oh, I was like the 1780s or something. It didn't last more than like 15 years or so. And but even that story's wild, dude. That Adam Weishaupt is being persecuted by all these governments, and he's riding with his homie. And as they're riding, lightning literally just comes out of the sky and strikes his homie down dead. And Adam Weishaupt is completely unscathed. And when he shows up to the next town, he shows up and he's like got this dead dude with him that he can't really explain. So they take the dead dude's body, and as they're inspecting his body, they find that inside the guy's clothing, they rip open all the stitches, and he's got all these letters and addresses, like basically the Epstein's black book is inside this dude's clothes. And from that, they do this raid, and they find all these different Illuminati members, and that was essentially the big upheaval and the downfall of the Bavarian Illuminati, because then all of their writings became exposed. A lot of their member records got exposed, and at that point, the gig was kind of up.
Now, do you subscribe to the idea that some of them fled to other countries like England, France, and the United States?
Yeah, but again, I think they just reabsorbed themselves back into Freemasonry. I don't personally think that the Bavarian Illuminati by name continued, because all the Bavarian Illuminati, according to Philo's reply, was a complete Ponzi scheme from day one. Adam Weishaupt was going around to these dudes that were like all into this high magic, and deep down, he was an atheist. He thought that they were a bunch of idiots, that they actually believed in this grand architect or this big creator, but he respected the power that they wielded. So I think on that aspect, it was Bavarian Illuminati was completely incompatible with Freemasonry as a whole. And even his second in command, Philo was deep into esoteric and occult knowledge. I don't think Philo was an atheist, and Philo ends up leaving disgruntled, and that's where he kind of writes this expose. But basically, Adam Weishaupt was the guy going around being like, "Oh, you're a third degree. Are you fourth degree? Oh, you've never heard of fourth degree, or if you have, well, have you heard of eighth degree? Because we got it, and if you want it, then you just got to sign up." And then he would go back home and be like, "Philo, crap, I sold 10 different eighth degrees today." And Philo's like, "Dude, I'm still working on degree 5. You can't sell degree 8." And then he's like, well, you're gonna be real mad when I tell you I sold degree 20 and 25 and 30 yesterday. So we also need you to go ahead and work on those other ones. And at a certain point, Philo was like, "Screw this, dude. Like I can't keep up." And he was starting to feel almost like, I would assume, like a moral conflict of like, I know I'm just straight up lying to these people and just making crap up to back up the salesman. Like the sales guy was selling product that the product team didn't have yet.
Almost like Scientology. It's
close
like
to it, although
like once
they're
the
the true religion.
max,
They've actually got it sorted out though. Theirs is the right one.
I really think "thou shalt harass the IRS until they don't tax me" is a great foundation to build a religion on.
Oh, yeah.
Operation Snow White. Shout out.
Shout out. I think that's the best thing. I think that's why I say there's a truth in every religion. You just have to figure out what it is. And that's the best thing the Scientology ever did.
Everyone needs to like grab their W-2s, change it so they don't take your taxes out of your paycheck. And when it's time to pay, say like literally "fuck you." And no one pays them. And that's how we solve the problem. Just tell them not to take your money out of your paycheck. And when tax season comes, don't pay them.
But then they just print more, and then they know the jig's up. Like that doesn't actually hurt them. It just shows them that like, oh crap, the people aren't buying the facade anymore. Time to go to phase 2.
Well, then let's go to phase 2 because fuck that.
It's
You're-
phase 2 time.
y'all are taking more than half our paychecks, bruh. Like not just from our paychecks, but on our standard living. I'm with that plan, Cheney.
It is kind of crazy. This is the one thing that I really this is the one that settles on me. This is the one that settles on my every grown-up word called adult in my body.
Hmm.
Every 3 years, one of the years you work is just for them.
Yeah.
That is so wild to me.
Fucking
Every
wild.
3
feel like I
years,
should
one full
Cuss
year
like
is
my
free.
cramp again.
Yeah, it's so, and you don't know what that's going. They tell us stories like it's going to, World War Z, and it's going to these countries that you don't know, but we don't have a clue. And then what does it matter? Like, at what point does the currency not matter? It's the same. Yes. At what point is
Beast?
here?
No, what
I'm
does that
gonna
say?
do it like this because I figured this shit out.
Beast. Okay.
Good
It's
job.
true. It's fucking true.
It is. It's wild.
It's its own dragon, its own entity.
That's where I think the Tea Party, the 2 birds, 1 stone. Yeah, taxes, and then the other part, we got rid of our tea.
Dude, they're making money off of your life force. That's mind blowing. And they say what? Minimum you're worth $8 an hour. Your life force is worth $8 an hour. Get the fuck out of here. Like that's nuts. That's nuts. The system needs to change. I like that idea. Reset. Boosh.
If you ran for president, would you do a great reset?
Boosh. Right away.
This is why secret
I would do
societies exist.
I swear to God, I would.
Would you build it back better afterward?
Listen, I'm on a teeter totter because I see where the elite are coming from. There's some just sick, crazy motherfuckers on this realm that don't belong here. So it's I get it, I see it, but it's who am I to make that call? I'm just me. How to make the world a better place is the key, but they don't want to do that. They want to control everything. So that's why the mess that we see is the mess that we're in. I feel like if women run the world, it would be a better place. But that's just me. Not in the feminist
not
kind
in
of
the
sense.
Beyonce way.
No.
Not
In
in
the
who runs the
matriarchy
world?
kind of way.
Who runs the world?
In a different
You ever heard
loving
of the Amazonians?
the women
Yeah, you know
Yeah.
that's based on real tribes that were matriarchal, and they would essentially have no men in the tribe. And
Really?
when a boy was born, they would let him go as an orphan, and they would only keep the female children. But when it was time to procreate, they would go and they would basically battle a bunch of dudes, and whoever didn't die to their warfare would be chosen to mate with, and that's how they kept it flowing.
What?
These
Like
were,
daggering.
chicks that
Damn.
rode horses and shot arrows going backwards on a horse. Like, they were some of the baddest women in history, and they weren't exactly going for world peace or anything like that. So I'm not anti matriarchy, but I am saying there are examples of bad matriarchies and bad patriarchies. It's
Yeah,
not all,
there's
it's
bad
not
in
all good
everything.
or
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hey,
It
then you
reminds
have
me of
like
the bees.
you
Like
have
the
like
bees. Oh, sorry.
no, it's all right. The Middlewind Society in Native American culture, to my knowledge, was maternal, matriarchal, and they kept it down pretty good. And a lot of those people still keep those traditions. So to me, that's although they've endured a lot, they've kept the flame burning, which is a lot to say.
Interesting. Very
Have you ever
interesting.
heard the theory that Bohemian Grove is the antithesis to a matriarchal society? That essentially the Golden Bough describes matriarchal society. In addition to the Amazonians, the difference is that in a patriarchal society, the power automatically goes down to the firstborn son. And that's just like the most typical one that we all know of today. But what also happens through that is that the firstborn son might not be worthy. Just because his dad was the king doesn't mean that he's got the same balls to be the king, right? So
Yeah.
in a matriarchal society, the difference was that everything was passed through conquest, that you would have to be like, the guy would have to come from an outside land, almost like Mark's saying. You got to be like an ultimate warrior and have to pass all these true tests of
Avatar.
merit and morality, and like you had to get vetted, sort of like you were joining a society. And if you got vetted, then you were allowed to have the rest of the kingdom, and you could take the princess and everything. But it's a huge difference, because now the only way that the bloodline continues to pass down is that's usually through a stranger from an outside land for truly practical purposes, so you avoid inbreeding. But the second one is that the conquest itself is the merit, like that the process of getting all the way to the princess, that becomes the proof that they're worthy, that they could make it that far. But through the patriarchy society, it's just like, daddy, I want that one. And they're like, sure, Hunter, you can have all of the ones that you want. You know what I mean? And that's the patriarchy, and that's where corruption starts. And that's also the whole premise of cremation of care. Shout out David Charles Plate, who put me onto this, but that the cremation of care is like, care is essentially like this thing coming from the outside to take over and restore balance back to a matriarchal society. But Bohemian Club kills care, and they reestablish this concept of, no, the patriarchy wins. I'm going to pass my power and my lineage down through my firstborn son, and that's how it works. And that it's not scalable because corruption can just immediately present itself.
That is true. That is very true. So, okay, now that you kind of mentioned the Bohemian, is that part of the Skull and Bones 322 and George Bush and their clubs with the presidents and whatnot?
Well, it kind of goes back to like what we were saying before about like factions and different secret societies working together, working against each other. From what I've read in Anthony Sutton's books about Skull and Bones, they're sort of in a ring that's in the center of a larger ring that's in the center of a larger ring, right? And Bohemian Grove might be in that outer center. So people come to that club, they're kind of vetted, they're already powerful, they're already in a position where they're useful to the club, and then they're chosen to come within. And then maybe when they're really within it, then their son goes to Yale and he gets elected into Skull and Bones or one of the other clubs, right? So it is this sort of process where they're secretly connected with each other, like the Council of Foreign Relations, the Bilderberger group. You know, there are multiple different groups that kind of work in concert, but are technically separate entities. But you could argue that they're all part of the same group.
I
And
would
this,
consider that Skull and Bones would almost be like getting drafted out of high school to play college ball, and then getting into Bohemian Club. That's more like becoming like an owner of a team.
So, who's in charge of these clubs?
w-
Well,
the
some
Skull and
people-
Bones is similar to the Boule as well, where you don't get to tell everybody that you're, or like you were saying, your friend's fraternity. You don't get to tell everyone that you're, oh, I'm doing my whole week. You have to wait until it's like a secret that you're initiating into the Skull and Bones.
Not necessarily with Yale. Maybe nowadays with this whole social media world, yeah, that's the case. But in the past, they would publish like who got tapped into Skull and Bones in the college newspaper. So it wasn't
After they got in?
yeah, it wasn't a
Yeah,
secret,
after they got in. I
but
thought I didn't know they were allowed to say who was
it was
in.
it was a
Pledging.
secret.
They're allowed to sell
Yeah.
Who
pledges.
they were gonna choose, and they kind of had some formalities around it. But no, it was like a whole college affair at a certain point where everybody kind of knew, like, oh, today's the day people get picked. Nobody knew who was gonna get picked, but when you got picked, yeah,
Yeah. Once you were
got
picked, you were
weren't
picked.
telling any secrets about what you had done inside of the secret society, but people knowing you were there, I mean, people were going to find out. They have these fancy, buildings that they walk into with huge doors, these tombs. So people
That was
on
supposed to
campus-
be part of the secret, is that the people on campus not being hip to be square about who was being tapped to be the people, and then once it was out, it was like all these people are the people. So it was supposed to be, when it was outed, like you didn't even know if your roomie was and going through the whole thing. You didn't even know if your, bestie, they weren't allowed to tell anyone. And then once you were in, you were in, and then everybody could know. That's
Well,
what I always thought.
they had a whole like, affair about it. Like there was a tree that they got tapped under. So like from what I've researched, at a certain point in time, it was not a secret as to when
Yeah.
and who got tapped. But what you did once you were tapped certainly has always been secret. And even once you're an alumni, because that's the whole point of these groups, as Thomas was saying, it's like being drafted into something out of high school. Um, you know, I would say with this stuff, they only select people whose parents are also kind of playing ball already, right? So you don't just get pulled out of nowhere.
Pedigree.
But nowadays, there was a whole recent, story in, I think, the New York Times about how Skull and Bones specifically, the members are like, you know, we're tearing the statues down, so to speak, right? And
Yeah,
they took
they've been
all.
co-ed for over a decade now too.
Well, yeah, and they've been, multiracial as well ever since the 70s. So it's like, times change and these groups change. And I wonder how, effective these groups even are at recruiting at this point when they're so caught up in, these frivolous social justice affairs that are really hypocritical coming from that institution. I mean, Yale specifically was named after a slave trader. I mean, that anybody can go and look that up. So, but when you come to the fact that these secret societies are doing things that coerce people into not only a certain status but also a certain culpability, like, okay, you have to do what we're kind of coercing you to do, and yeah, you're going to benefit from it, but ultimately they're still kind of a pawn in this larger machine. So to your point, like, I think that when, like, socially, when people sense this, they might not have the exact name for it, but they call it the Illuminati, and we see people all over the world sensing this. And like intuitively, as human beings, we know there's corruption, but it's larger than just, oh, people can't be trusted and humans are just greedy, so that's going to happen. No, it's not. It's systematic corruption. It's on a level that's beyond just human error.
How are the Shriners tied to all this? Are they part of like the Illuminati? Are they part? Because
The
there's so
Shriners
many.
is a wing of the Freemasons. I've always heard them described as like the drinking club of the Freemasons.
Okay, and their symbol represents the moon, is the moon and the sun, and it is the Islamic symbol, and it
Right.
reminds me of the Turkish fez. So is it like a different type
It
of
is the Fez.
belief?
No, that's
Yeah,
exactly what it is.
yeah. So what's their ultimate belief in what they believe in? Do they believe in like the Islamic version of the word God?
No,
A
they
lot.
use the Islamic. This is going to be like a great, like, a oversimplification by a large mile, but they kind of use those teachings to just re-represent the same tenets of Freemasonry in a different way. The same
Okay.
way that some people claim that the Bible took place in the United States, right? I think like there's some sects that believe that. I think Mormons might believe part of that. 5%ers and Nation of Islam, some of them also believe that the Quran and all of those locations, like Medina, is
Like
actually like New
Sufism?
Jersey or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, is it tied to like Sufism too? Like that whole spiritual sense of like Islam and not the like religious sense? Because there's
I mean,
like that
there's degrees within the Shriners that go into all that. I
like
never joined the
mysticism.
Shriners.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Because I always wondered, and I know it stems from like way, way back. I mean, like during the creation of the Israeli flag. And I know it was created in Turkey by some some ruler, I don't remember, but it just all ties to that. And just, yeah, interesting history with the fez and Freemasonry, the Shriners, the creation of Zionism.
I had a
Doesn't it?
guest on
Yeah.
my show recently named Paul Stobbs who told me that the Shriners were connected to this whole like clown Nephilim connection, where the Nephilim is being worshipped secretly as this clown symbol. So the modern day clown is like a
Wow.
symbolic depiction of a Nephilim. So these Shriners, like, they were associated with the circus and like
Abby.
Sorry. Nephilim is the homunculus of 2024. It's going to be the word everyone has to get used to hearing, and the M is silent.
Well, and
It's
I
Nephilim.
think like Thomas is like comment about it being like known as the drinking club, maybe even is, I don't know, in my suspicious mind, a hint at that, because this is like the kind of archetype of the clown, like this drunken, silly revelry, but also this kind of sinister, even like cynical, like horror movie clown type of, and it's not an accident that the clown's been in so many horror films, because
Well, there's also the jesters, and the jesters is even more. If you want to get nefarious, that's like the ones that are in the news the most for doing weird stuff that's related to
what he was
Freemasonry.
saying, is that the Shriners are like, basically the jesters are like connected to them, is what he was saying. So maybe you have other information.
I'm not an expert on this, but I feel like the jesters is like, if you follow that path all the way to its logical end, you end up being a jester.
Interesting. Yeah, and it goes into some weird realms, especially when you consider like the circus and its reputation of like taking on wayward people and children and so on, and there's the whole human trafficking thing. So historically speaking, like the circus, and the theater evolved into what we have today in Hollywood, right? So like there's a lot of occult stuff that people notice in Hollywood, and it's no accident that the precursors to film and stagecraft were, populated by these same occultists and Freemasons. I mean, the 1800s in the United States, it was like an occult renaissance for some years after the Civil War, and even pre 1830s, before the anti-Masonic movement. There was tons and tons and tons of secret societies, but they weren't really secret because there was nothing to keep secret back then about them. The Freemasons had helped win the war, the American Revolution. Tons of people were in these groups because it was a form of patriotism. People were
Well, the company
They're
line is
malicious.
that they're not secret societies, that they're societies with secrets.
Well, but I mean, over the general arc of history, people have been a part of these groups, and it's changed. But the groups that we're talking about are the ones on the real fringes, right? The upper echelon, the elites, the people who have a lot of money, but then also the people who are willing to go to like those really dark, depraved levels to make money, or to be a criminal for whatever sadistic reason they become a criminal, right? So I think those are the two major archetypes of people, at least in the darker aspects of secret societies. But there are arguably good aspects of the secret societies. We have the Constitution of the United States that allows us to speak freely on a podcast like this, and it was written by men in secret societies, right? So I mean, there are ups and downsides to
So what about the CIA? Isn't that like the whole definition of a secret society?
That's a fucking secret society.
Layla, will you do a mic
Motherfucker,
check real
right?
quick?
The CIA was
Will you do
born
a
out of-
mic check real quick?
Never. Oh no. Oh no, I can't do it right now.
the
No, I'm
CIA
not doing
came out
it.
of the OSS.
I'm not
and
doing it.
The OSS was definitely created by people in secret societies, specifically Skull and Bones. So yeah, the CIA is definitely in the conversation for sure. I mean, but what do they do other than accumulate
Oh
power
yeah.
in the form of blackmail?
That was terrible.
You're coming in good.
Okay, good.
Sorry.
Sorry, I'm so sorry, man. I'm
We
so
are
sorry.
such
I was trying to get some like courage to do that. It was terrible.
It took a while. Okay, sorry. Whew. Mic check. Yeah, CIA. I was listening, but because I moved on and I didn't think Layla was going to do it, so I was listening.
I had to find it in me to do it, and it was terrible.
That's how we mic check around here.
Yeah, we're gonna shoot out a moan.
A good. It has to be
Like,
good, like porn
not
style.
what I did.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Oh my God, I love you. Okay, sorry. Whew. The CIA. You asked a question and Mark was answering, and then we were assholes. It was so rude.
It's all right. It's all right.
Welcome to the
Fucking
Secret
happens.
Society of
It
Assholes.
happens. It
I know.
happens.
If
We
you
all
are
got
part
one.
of the Golden Shit Club, make sure you hit the thumbs up. Make sure you licky the likey. And real quick, I want to put Abby on the spot because she is going to have something coming out on her channel soon about the Medici card series, because a lot of people were asking about that. So that will be coming out soon. And sometimes that puts a little bit of fire.
It does.
under
It's
the
in the
creative-
works, though.
It's in the
It
works.
is in the works. It is
I-
happening.
It's
being
happening.
planned.
And then
it's
Layla
gonna
would
be
like anyone
awesome.
who's watching the show and they laugh out loud. Anytime you do that, if you timestamp it in the comments, because she's putting together edits, or if you like Thomas rant, or if Mark says something dreamy, timestamp it, because Layla's doing a whole bunch of edits and figuring out how to use her magic. So
Yeah,
that is
please.
the business I wanted to take care of right now. And back to the secret.
That's a huge
Society.
favor. Please, thank you. Love you guys.
Well, Mark, since we went ahead and did this whole interruption, we do have a question for you.
That's fine. Hey, it's your show. I'm happy to be here.
And it's a weird question, but be open-minded.
We're putting you on the spot because any guest to
Okay.
the show, any new initiate has to answer this question. It's a two-part question. First of all, would you fuck your clone? And the second question is, would that be considered incest or masturbation to you?
I would say no. I would probably treat my clone like a little brother and not like a sex toy. So,
That's a good answer.
That was a great
yeah,
answer.
I would consider it, yeah, on that level. So yeah, no, I would have him help me get through some of these books. I just say, hey, you don't have to work, just sit on that couch and read, and I'll do the rest.
Even
Yeah,
if it's a
2 minds.
female clone version.
Well, that's not really, I guess that's not really a clone then. That'd be more like my sister, right? If it was the same genetics, but a female version of me, right? Wouldn't that be like having a twin sister?
Well,
Still
not
incest.
really.
I
If
hate
you know
to
the
say
clone, you know,
I
it's
hate
like a
to say-
replica.
Yeah, what if you like accidentally like lost one of your arms and then you went back to check on it and you noticed it was growing a new body, and then the third day there was another mark there, so it was unequivocally a clone.
I love this. I love this.
I mean, yeah.
I don't think that really changes my answer. I'm almost I don't even go to the
Don't let him
hospital.
bully you, Mark. I'm not fucking my clone either. I'm building things and doing all of them are clone fuckers, and I can't let this go on. I'm not a clone fucker, and
Listen,
I
don't
treat
shame
my
the clone
makers of-
fuckers. You can't shame us.
Fair
I'm
enough.
a
I
part
can't
of-
shame the clone fuckers, but I wasn't gonna let you guys bully Mark into making him think that
Yeah,
everyone
don't
around
feel
here is
guilty.
clone fucking.
No amount of bullying could have
Cheney be all like
changed my answer.
making her as a slave over there. She's like, they're gonna build my house for me.
No, we're gonna do it together. I just know I can trust me, so I know the work is gonna be chef's kiss. So I
That's
would
true.
be like, whatever
sense.
that I could do, I would be like, hey, clone me, are you hungry? And then clone me would be like, oh, don't even worry about that. Let me cook for you. And normally I'd be like, but I know clone me knows me. So textures are gonna
Alright.
be fine, flavors are gonna be good.
Now that I'm starting to think about it, if I had cloned me, nobody would know I had cloned me, and me and clone me would work out this very cool plan where he takes my place and does this, and I go and travel the world, and then I come back, and then clone me goes and lives his own life wherever he wants, somewhere in the world, and but sends me info and cool
This
stuff.
actually,
That's what
I
I would
think,
do.
is the most logical idea when people, because this
idea.
is like a pool. I think everything, when people think of like the big gotcha, they should think about it in pool hall terms. And so this would be the best way to do a pool hustle, is that one of you is a great pool player, but one of you is a phenomenal pool player, and no one ever sees the phenomenal pool player play until the tournaments. And so people just don't even get it. That's what I think more likely than them having like a clone Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton. Why wouldn't they just have a twin we never know about? Like, wouldn't that give you ultimate power if you did have this twin?
I kind of feel like we do, like a doppelganger out there somewhere.
That's happened in history with lookalikes, with
Like
people who've gotten to power. I'm almost certain there have been twins who have held like the throne before. Yeah, for sure. But do we know that they were twins? Probably not in their lifetime. It probably came out afterwards. Because that's like a really strategic thing to have, in your arsenal, to have a body double. I mean, world leaders do that all the time.
Is there a secret society of women that we haven't heard about? Do you think the witch burnings could have been something to do with that? And then in the witch burnings, like if there's these factions of that we always think of, like men's secret society versus women's secret societies, couldn't the witch burnings have been women versus women setting up propaganda to get the other secret society taken care of?
What about
Like,
the
couldn't it
nunnery? The nunnery, isn't that like, we don't know what they do behind closed doors. It's very secret. We just know that they give their lives up to God, but like they're human and they're in a church or whatever they're doing. Don't you consider that almost like a secret society or covenant of women, like groups of women living in secret? Even though it's not a witchy thing to do, but they
Can you
are.
break up the etymology of the word coven?
Coven.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you. Hold on.
All
I
right.
think I can.
I bet you couldn't come up with
I do
something
this
in there.
thing where I figured out the Albanian language can unlock a lot of meaning.
And we're gonna do this part right now where we beatbox while Layla figures out the word coven. No, but I do think there has to be something to, we know like women were allowed to be Scottish Freemasons, and the Queen is such an arbitrary idea of somebody who actually has any kind of power. And we know that the real power structure of that, we wouldn't really know the names of the people who have the real power in the world. So why wouldn't it just be the women? Like, isn't it almost more powerful for them to hide behind, for like a Melinda Gates to hide behind a Bill, or for even Beyonce to hide behind a Jay-Z? Like, doesn't it kind of get, if you look at certain men, even in like the 1940s or 50s, I wouldn't hire you up unless you were married. I wouldn't give you a promotion unless you were married. So it would show that you were reverent to something already.
Well, look
And
at
it was,
the presidency. Has there ever been a single president?
yeah, there has to
Good
be something with the
point.
womb. Like there's something with the marriage. Like, would marriage ever behoove a man? Like, if we're going to go all the way back to things and unravel it, what would be the point of a man ever needing to get married in society? Was it for land? Was it to trade a cow? Was it for a womb? I mean, with the exception of love, but why go through the
Well,
ritual of marriage?
it's to take your wife off the market, essentially.
Well, you could just say that. You don't have
You
to
could
do
just
all
say
that.
it. Yeah, why go through the
A woman
ritual
doesn't
of
need
it?
all that. They really
Well,
don't.
because it makes it legal. Because there was an actual legal ramification, and even now today, like if you were to go and get a divorce, for example, the fact that there's infidelity might actually make a monetary impact on how the assets are divided up. So it's very much like this, like you're officially mine, I'm officially yours,
But what's the
outside of
big
love.
up of a man claiming that? Like a girl, she gets your land, she gets your kingdom,
Another
she gets your strength. Like
so
back when,
another
let's put us
man
back
that
in
You
the,
get a baby
we know why
factory out of
now.
it.
I love that term so much.
So it's like her genes essentially.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you want
absolutely.
her genes. You're like, so like, why would her genes be good unless because she warred alongside you or because
Well,
she had wealth of a kingdom?
well, I
Why
will
would you
tell
need her genes to be?
Well, I will tell you what they looked for back in the day where we grew up in Albania. They liked tall, big women. I mean, they looked for tall and huge women. Why? For warriors. The bigger the woman, the stronger the woman, the more like masculine the woman, the more of a warrior he'll turn out to be. So it's interesting. And then that created a whole like sector of women called Burnesha, which are a group of women who legit look like fucking men without even trying. Like they were born that way because of their genes, and they live like men. There's a whole ass village of women that live like men and look like men. So it's all part of this, I guess, warrior mentality and war, and they looked for that. Not just beauty necessarily, but
Because I think a lot of our art and stuff always depicts the wealthy and the winners of history. We don't ever really get to know why the decision would have been made if not for kingdoms. We're like under the illusion of, yeah, love, but in reality, people were only marrying love for a very short amount of time. So it
mhm.
was a business arrangement, and it must have been something to do with like, I get protection from you, and you're going to feed me and my children.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like it's like a huge
It
spell almost on the masculine. I feel like to like there's there's more to gain for the weaker in the having the government involved in your relationship than there is for.
There's a
Does this
spell
make
to
sense?
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
there's a
like
spell to that. I see
it's
it today.
it's like if you were the most powerful man in the village, you would just be like, that girl's mine and that girl's mine and that girl's mine. You don't need to ever have a government or state say, and God thinks your marriage is good. You don't need it. So it's like somewhere it just seems like a spell. Like, I don't know, it just seems like you have this farm, you have this land, and now you're going to take care of me with it. Somewhere and not that I'm not taking care of you. I'm taking care of your house and cooking for you and scrubbing your boots and taking care of the kids, but in the idea of my masculine, why would I need to sign a piece of paper and have to stay there forever?
Yeah.
Like it just seems like a
There's a
weird
spell to
feminine
it.
spell to it.
When
Well,
you're
there's
s
also a double standard here because I think between the lines, if let's rewind the clock back like a few hundred years, right?
Mhm.
So when you take those vows, there was almost like this double standard of, and this adultery thing, it kind of applies to the wife and not so much to the guy, especially if the guy's out doing adventures, because there's like that the area code rule applies extra if you leave your wife in Britain and you go off to India, or you go off to, or even hell, like the World War II vets, or like the Korean War vets and stuff, or the Vietnam vets. It was like there's a different element to it where, and this is forgive me for the horrible analogy, but this is the one that kind of represents this mentality of that a guy that has a bunch of different wives and that has the ability to have kids with a bunch of different wives. It's like the analogy of like a master key, being like that's the skeleton key is the one that opens all the doors in the house, so it's got this extra value to it. But a lock that can be opened by any key that anyone has doesn't mean it's a master lock. It means it's a crappy lock. And that's sort of that horrible double standard premise that I think goes with the legal contract of marriage.
Hmm.
Yeah, it is kind of, I mean, maybe it's for namesake of kid afterward. Like who gets this name of kid, which would be the masculine stamp on it, like your baptism. But I guess a guy can be on a birth certificate without having to, but why the birth certificate? That wouldn't even existed either. I just think it's an interesting, like, in the follow the wives way. And then we see the corporation split. The guy gets in trouble for whatever crime, whatever embezzlement, whatever thing. The lady's like, I never knew about that thing. Even her jewelry that she has on, it's like she can walk right out of the house. She can walk right away from the crime with all that jewelry, and that's allowed. And that's why like mobsters and people like that buy their wife all that jewelry, because she can put it all on her and walk out with millions of dollars and right out of the crime scene, no matter what's going on. And I just think there's little things that women
Well,
have
you're
done
right
secret.
though, because certificate, the etymology of it is so different than record. You had birth record where they just recorded the date, the time, when, the where, and that was it. But the certificate, they're literally stamping the soul of the child's foot, certifying it and sending it to the government when they don't need to do that. All you need is the birth record. So the record or marriage record are two different entities versus, you know, record versus certificate. So that's the magic, the wording in it and the word play and the
Well,
power
even this,
behind it.
all the ships are named after women on the
Mhm.
maritime. So they're named after women, and then we bring them into port, and everything on that ship gets a manifest, a birth certificate. And then the second I hand that certificate to you, all of the stuff inside the vessel becomes native to your country. It's allowed to be there now.
Yeah, they create a false entity because you have the birth record. So they create another entity of you, which is the birth certificate, which is actually an act of necromancy when your mother is signing that. So it's like they're claiming you as dead, what's it called? Dead at sea, pretty much. Not live, but dead. So even the way that they spell the name on the birth certificate matters, in all caps versus just regular spelling. So that whole certificate is creating another identity, which they can use your essence in the whole trade of bonds. So that's how they make money off of your life force, is by that certificate, the whole magic of it. When you're signing contracts with anyone, whether it's a house, whether it's a bill, whether whatever it is, be conscious of what you're signing. You're literally signing life force away. That's why they say the power of the pen and your signature, because you are a living vessel. You are the living man. But since there is that extra entity, it's like there's two of you somewhere and they're playing with your energy. So there's a whole magic to that. That makes sense.
It
So
made
yeah.
sense. It made sense. I just there just seems to be a lot of things that we just kind of do, even from the education system to rubbing vitamin K in the eyes to like, there's just a lot of stuff that I think women could be a little more responsible for. We were talking about the tyranny in the medical industry and all this. And a lot of the times it's those women in the room alone with their child before, and to say no to all that stuff. And so it's just from that point on, as a mom, and we're in this like financial strife all the time to not be able to raise our kids, or to have to, like, the spell's done, burn your bra, you want to go make as much money as them out there. And so then we're not raising our children, we're involved. So the TV's raising the children, which is a depression of its own. Moms can't feel good about that, but that gives us our generations here, because we're unmothered and unfathered. It's so I don't know. I just think it's like all the secret societies all the time are men, 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 but they tell us the real powers that be will never know their name. And we talk about the Bavarian Illuminati or the Khazarian Mafia, their Paysir family. But it's like, who are all these women that are just getting through and their wombs are getting through? And we don't talk about who slept with Castro, who slept with like Justin Trudeau. Like, how are all these cucky people getting around? How are all the bloodlines it's these women are in hiding, and they just keep where they're like, oh, this person's related. Barbara Bush is related to Aleister Crowley through, and we just don't. It's like, oh, George Bush, George Bush, George Bush. Well, what about Barbara? What about, it's just like the
Mhm.
wombs seem like they're losing some of the weight of the secret.
Do
I
you think
think they
women just keep
do it on
secrets better?
purpose. Yeah.
I do. I
Yeah.
think and it's weird because you'd think we're the cluckers, like we're the clucking little hens, like we're the clucking little Abraxas, but I just don't. I think that ladies will take the craziest detrimental secrets to themselves to the grave. Like the amount of women that had kids and because they were too young or their father was like, you will not do this under my name. And they went somewhere for the summer and gave birth to a kid and came back and they never were allowed to say a word. I think that is so frequent that happens and people would be so surprised. And I think these 23andMe are proof that it's coming out that like, oh, these people are all family here and these people are all family here. And so that I think a lot of times, even Ireland, a lot of the Catholic Church, they almost banked on the fact that young women were going to get knocked and not be able to have their kids, and so that they could human traffic in orphanages.
Nuts. And I keep thinking about the squares, the square magic of it all. And all of it, the magic behind the occult and the shapes that they use, the symbol of the triangle, and then the square being with everything, with documents, with TVs, with tarot cards, with square magics, with Hollywood squares, the squares everywhere. And they live where you just put the glasses on and every square had a fucking message behind it. So that to me is like, they have the square magic, they have their own triangle shaped magic, and then they have their circle magic with the Solomon seals and whatnot. So it's like shapes of it all, like how they can control the masses. I feel like that's the symbology behind it, which I still have no idea how they use it. But the sigils, the magic behind the shapes, the square, circle, and triangle are what makes everything work here in this realm. I guess one has to do with life force, one has to do with conjuring, and one is to like, I guess, spew is my only guess.
I don't know.
But
it's
making
squares.
sense
I
in
know
my head.
human beings are not supposed to live in brutality. I think we're not supposed to see things in squares. I know I don't think we're supposed to have corners in our life like this. And anything, if you talk about magic, they say if you're going to sage or if you smoke a spliff to get rid of energies, everybody will always tell you make sure you get the corners. And so I think that's where kind of negative energy resides
Well,
somewhere, is the corner
with
of things.
the whole symbol, the square, I guess, isn't that no, that's a thing that makes a circle, right? With the whole square on the bottom. So it's all like shapes. I think that's where their magic lies, is behind the shapes and what they put inside these shapes and how they use it. I see it. Checkerboard, mirrors, circle, TVs, fucking square, books, square.
What
Your
other shape would
damn,
you make it?
I don't know. The tetrahedron,
You
like
just have
everything
some
being like
crazy
3D
thing
and
in
like
your
fucking
hands that made no sense to hold.
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's
Don't you
just
think sometimes things are just like, what is it, ergomic? What is it called?
origami.
No,
Origami.
what's the ergomic? What's the name where like you sit in a chair and it's
Ergonomic.
comfortable? Thank you. Say
Huh.
it again because I already
Ergonomic.
ergonomic. Yeah.
Ergonomic.
Yeah, like a
Interesting.
square might just be the easiest way to put words from corner to corner. So why would you have a circular piece of paper?
Look at nature. How does nature form?
It's free forming.
Well, there's
But
a
in a sense, yes.
there's a golden ratio. So if you look at a shell, like a mollusk or whatever, sea life with their
Yeah.
shell, you look at the geometry of the shell, there's a relationship between the lines and the angles and the radius of the circles being created by the spiral. And when the human eye looks around at the world, we see beauty when we see that golden ratio because
Yeah.
we are organic beings that live in an organic world. That's what organisms are, right? And there are artificial things that we humans create. And the more that they conform to the golden ratio, the more beautiful they appear. So that's why we have great works of architectural art, like these cathedrals in Europe and even in America. There's some great, amazing buildings. And you use the term brutal to describe squares, and there's all concrete, city blocks where all the buildings are just these, ugly squares coming out of the ground. And people would look at that and say, that doesn't look like a forest. That doesn't look like a mountain range. That doesn't look like anything in nature. So
Yeah.
why is it like that? And people would say, oh, well, it's the most efficient way to conserve the space, right? So, but is that psychologically a good thing? Does that conform to this control paradigm that we've been describing throughout the evening? How did those types of structures even get conceived? Who decided that they would build buildings that tall and put people in them like apartments instead of giving everybody their own piece of land and you know however
Yeah,
many?
who was that clever motherfucker?
So I think these are questions that maybe are beyond my capability of answering, but definitely worth asking. And as far as shapes go, I think yeah, it's definitely magic, but I think the magic is more in the numbers and the relationships between the shapes and the numbers. And you can extrapolate that to astronomy, where we're able to calculate the distances of stars from each other, and we draw shapes with the various stars, and we're able
Mhm.
to track them over periods of time, and understand things about the cycles of time through that observation. So I think that's a big part of the magic of architecture, is aligning a building to said, maybe like the North Star, or maybe just so that the windows are placed in such a way that you get a lot of sunlight in your house, right? Like I think it's not always a cult. It could be something very, you know, sensible, like, hey, I want to live in a house that's not completely cold and dark, right? So yeah, I think the shapes are important, but you know, you look all over the world and people live in different types of shapes houses. So I don't know that any one way is the right way. Maybe there's a best way, but
Moscow.
there's tons of different variations, So I think more people live in circular buildings than square ones. I don't know. Depends on how you would figure that out. Maybe not.
Hmm. Well,
Well,
I think
also,
they live more in square. Everything's squared out,
well,
like
everything that
cornered
can
out.
be represented as a triangle, but not like I don't think everything could be represented as a circle as easily as everything could be a triangle. And if you can represent everything as triangles, you can also represent everything as squares. And that's how kind of 3D modeling works.
Yeah, and how they set up the city blocks and streets and everything's at a certain degree and angle. It's like a star fort grid or something. It's like a bigger picture. I don't know. It's fucking weird. Everything's like all interconnected with everything in
But
this.
I do think sometimes, like, even driving around my neighborhood, all the houses are on a tilt because nobody wants direct sunlight in their windows in the morning or at night. So the houses all tilt and they don't have windows on those side of the house if you look at all old Florida homes. So I do think sometimes it's religious and intentional that way, and sometimes it's just intentional because it makes sense in the actual 3D of it. Like,
Mm,
oh, let's pitch our roof so it holds more heat up there. Oh, let's have flat roof so we can get wind flow better. Oh, let's have a roundhouse because it's windy here. I just think it's
true.
all just sometimes nature. It's like the same thing we were talking about. Like, would everyone walk around naked? And it's like, no, they wouldn't, because some people don't want their tits ripped off by sandstorm. It's
Well,
like not it's sometimes not anything to do with a freedom of we're not allowed. It just makes sense
it
because
all
we don't
went
want to have our forehead burned.
and it all went from like being stone homes, like brick homes, to like wood, metal. Like it all changed. And it was like beauty to it all. Even with the stones, it was like life to it. You put fucking paint on a brick wall, you destroy the bricks because they can't breathe because it has life in it. Like it's a living thing. It's strange. Even though it's not like living, but it is living because it needs to breathe.
Well, a lot of the times the structures that they made were made out of certain woods in the area that the bugs wouldn't eat.
Mm.
So all the oldest homes in Florida are made out of wood that was like native to here, and they were the trees that all the people were like, huh, all those other trees get destroyed by the bugs, but those trees, the termites never go in them. We should build all the houses out of that, and everywhere has an area of trees that the bugs don't destroy. And so I think dependent on where you live, you get that kind of wood or that kind of brick. And then so if you had harder storms or harsher weather that you wanted, things to be there, that's where I think the masons come into play, where the
That's
history
yeah,
becomes cemented.
like stone masons. So wasn't everything just stone instead of like wood? And then the whole stone mason of it all. But they say, well, maybe wood too, because Jesus was a mason, wasn't he?
Carpenter.
Carpenter.
And a mason, they say.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I just
there's
heard
like
Jesus
stories
was
of
a
him
carpenter.
being a mason, learning at a very young age,
Well,
and
and
actually,
Peter was his rock, his
Stone.
foundation, and the word Peter translates directly to rock.
yeah. So like I heard that this whole story of him actually being a mason and like learning with the masons at a very very young age, and yeah, that's all I know. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe someone out there heard this story, but I remember we've spoke about this like a while back.
I
With
think that a lot of cultures would build with wood and they wouldn't use metal. And so the metal is the only thing that really destroys wood. The metal is the screw that will rip through wood eventually, and the rust in the metal and everything like that. But if you use wood on wood, water eventually swells it. And so it becomes all one piece. So that's why you can look at like Amish, they still build all the barns and all the things the exact same way they always did and don't use screws in anything. So there are wood structures that do stand the test of time. It's just the same as the cement structures are the powers that be going to allow them to stand the test of time. So it's like they can get rid of the boats and shit a lot easier than the cement. They have to bury the cement in sand or mud or whatever. But the boats they can light on fire or bury them. I think they found a huge ship under like some New York building on a dig, like old wooden boat. But even if you look at these wooden boats in the ocean, everybody that goes on pirate digs and stuff, they find pieces still of these wooden ships under the water. Like they're all still connected. So I think wood could stand the test of time just as much as anything. It
yeah,
just might not be as good in war. Like a big bad wolf, blow your house down. Like
think
I could shoot a cannon at your wood and splinter it.
yeah, and there are no like history and the education system tries to give us like these definitives like, oh, this happened and then this happened and then this happened and it only happens in this sequence, but that's not how life works. Like, as you're saying this, I'm thinking like, well, sure, wood, but if you live somewhere where there's no wood, what are you going to live in, right?
you
And
know what?
there's tons of places there people build out of adobo, which is like a construction of things like hay or cob. There's multiple different concoctions, but you basically create what you could call like a geopolymer, right? So it's not technically stone, but it's like a simple form of geopolymer. But with that in mind, you know, the pyramids, right? This great architectural anomaly, because again, things don't really happen in sequential order, at least in our known lifetime. So, you know, everybody was building with pretty rudimentary materials, wood, clay, things like that. And then boom, they're building huge stone constructions out of nowhere, which takes some advanced techniques that we still can't even replicate today. So I wonder, if stone isn't like one of the more advanced types of architecture and not like, we've been given this idea like, oh yeah, this stone age was the, most primitive time in man. And, I'm not speaking that way towards you. I just am kind of sarcastically criticizing academia
You're right.
talk
I
like
was just gonna ask this
this.
question. Like,
Well, it's this idea that, humans like, we evolved out of nothing and came to this great height that we're at now. And, that's debatable, and I think probably wrong. But when it comes to construction and architecture, like the things that last that we can study and possibly even date, or at least have some idea of how old these things are, they seem to be some of the most advanced things on the planet. So it's like, well, if the oldest buildings are the most advanced, what do we like? What happened? And maybe the secret societies that built, these great cities and great cathedrals, the Freemasons who took that knowledge, like we were saying before, from the ancient world and have preserved it secretly onto today, maybe they
Yeah.
know how to
You
do this
you're
kind
onto something because there's this guy named Mutwa. He's like an African teacher and he's very knowledgeable on stone technology, crystal technology, dolphins, the orcas, the Delphi, the um
Is it
yeah, you know,
Credo Dotwa?
Mutwa. He's like this I
Credo?
think
Yeah,
yeah.
Credo. He's the one that had the interview with David Icke on the
Yeah,
Lunar
Yes.
he's
People.
David
Yeah.
Icke's.
So, like, going back to that whole Stone Age idea and like how, oh, it's good to eat with wood, or with copper. But how about the whole idea of eating out of stones, stone bowls, stone spoons, stone forks, and they probably had that technology. And like Mutwa had like this whole device where he can actually look through and like communicate with dolphins and the Delphi and the oracles and the shout out Donut. It's in the chat. But yeah, so maybe
Can
there
I
is some
ask
kind
a
of
question real quick? I know everyone says all the time that we can't recreate this shit with modern technology, but has anyone really tried? Who has the time? I just look at some of these structures just in my welding brain and what I know about blueprints, and they aren't that complicated. Taking H blocks and putting them next to each other is not some complicated thing. Building a pyramid is not complicated. And so I'm like at a loss sometimes with all the ancient alien stuff where we're like, oh my gosh, this is so like so high tech. And is it, or is this just the shit they tell us over and over again, so we buy into the idea that Egypt holds some part of our human history that it really doesn't?
I think it's high tech because there's one example, and I'd have to Google all of it to find all the exact names, but there was this book on architecture that was found in like the Middle Ages or something, and it was like information about how to build temples and how to build all these ornate sort of like pillars and like the flying buttresses and all that. That wasn't just like some dude discovered it one, or just thought it up one day. They had found these ancient manuscripts that had been lost for centuries, and it was like, oh crap, this is how you build all these things. And then it was like rediscovered and they were able to build again. So I don't think we've lost the technology today, but there's absolutely historical evidence of what seems like common sense being lost forever. It's
But
not quite like losing the recipe to ice, but it's sort of a good analogy.
Well, and
I feel
also,
like
like,
that's yeah.
when it comes to like the whole conversation of, well, why don't we build that stuff today? I mean, we've become a
Child labor laws. That's
yeah,
the
we've
reason.
become a global world culture, so it's so much easier to outsource this stuff to other countries and get cheaper materials elsewhere. And things like stone are heavy and not easy to transport in large distances, but they do it, right? So,
Well,
I mean,
there was a point in time too that if you were working on these huge things and you fell and you died or you like lost a leg, now it was like up to the community to take care of you. But there was no concept that we have today of like suing your employer and workman's comp and having a
do you think the
40-hour work week with
technology was higher
overtime.
in the pyramids than the Hoover Dam?
I think there's more technology in the Hoover Dam than the pyramids.
And it
I think
only took a few
different
13 years
lanes.
to build. And
Well, it's
if the
different lanes of thought, it's like the people who built the Hoover Dam are in a different circumstance than the people who built the pyramids, and it comes with a different mindset, like the
Well,
pyramid.
I just feel like we keep repeating the idea that we can't do this, and I think we totally can make every single one of
Oh,
these
no, no, no.
structures.
I'm
And I
not saying
also
that.
no, I've heard it's not you. It's like ancient alien stuff. It's said over and over again, like, look how fabulous this thing is. It's unrecreatable. And I
It's
really
Britney, bitch.
and guess who's back? But I also think that it's such a lie in history because they have us focusing all the time on the same 5 buildings. The same, here's the Great Pyramids, even in the name. Here's the great ones, you guys. This is where all the secrets of humanity. And then here's the ones in South America. Here's all the secrets. But I would say the same as the real powers that be, they would bury their name. The real powerful buildings that be are under other things. Like we don't know about them. And so it's just, I think, in the same way as like we can only get to a certain point with things, they allow the history we have to be the history we have. We don't hear about Great Pyramids of Tennessee. We don't hear about Great Pyramids of Albania, but it doesn't mean they aren't older with more history and more technology and more whatever it is. And so then we have this idea of technology instead of magic, and that you couldn't just levitate stones very easily and be like dee, 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 dee. And so like we might have lived in a totally different realm. And so I don't know, I just think
Jenny,
What
we
I find
stare at
more
the same
impressive
buildings over
is
and
like the
over
Arc de
again like
Triomphe.
meh.
well, I
The
feel
Arc de
like
Triomphe and stuff. Like, don't you feel like those are even way more impressive than the pyramids?
I
They
feel
seem so much higher technology.
with that
Yeah.
idea of like all their ancient technology, what I feel like they do is they find this ancient technology, use the material that is like easier for them to excavate, kind of change up the structure or the model of that same technology and create it more modern, not necessarily better, but maybe close to what they had, since their structures were made out of stone and
Why do you
ours
have
is
to excavate stone if you can just go into it? Like, what is this? Like, why don't you think they have us looking at the like hood ornament all the time of maybe the car underneath the ground? Like they always have us staring with just a little bit. Think of how many times we've heard about the Sphinx, and here's this person with their idea of what's under the Sphinx, how the Sphinx got there, what the Sphinx used to be. Did water hit the Sphinx? Here's all these
look
things
here,
about
not
the Sphinx.
there.
Yes, I just think it's
Mhm.
constantly like we're allowed to pay attention to, and they allow us to every single thing. It's like the Queen of England is the hood ornament on all the car underneath. I think that that's what I look at. Even the name, the Great Pyramid, lets me know it is the least great pyramid because they lie about all of history. And so why is it's like everything goes back to the Egypt, and they let us know, America, you're so young. You're so young, you little 200-year-old country, and look at, you're just a bunch of like nothing great about you. Like,
NPCs, noobs.
yeah, it's just there's something about it that I'm like, they always have us, they want us to buy into the out of Africa theory so bad with the esoteric and even down to the sapiens of it all. They're like, here's the monkey you came from. Here's the missing link. Here's the one black person that you all came out of the womb of. It's still the Adam and Eve theory, as much as everybody's like, that's so crazy to think we all came from one thing. It's crazy to think we all came from one thing. It's crazy. And so, and pretty much all of evolution with Darwinism has all pretty much been destroyed. Like the fittest aren't the ones who survive. Sometimes it's the ones who hide the best or are the fastest. It's like there's so many other things. So it's just a concept of what if the Great Pyramids are the biggest lie of all?
I have some very interesting photos that I have to look back on how the Sphinx was like kind of broken apart and like they put it together. I don't know if it was for a movie scene or something, but I have to
Yeah,
look.
I've seen that.
You remember? Yeah, I showed him.
Yes.
Yeah, I showed him to the group once, and I just questioned it all. Even with Stonehenge, I saw that like being. I have pictures of that being built or
Yep.
restructured. So I'm just like, they produce the history in a sense now.
It's
I
like a
feel like,
movie set. Yeah.
yeah, it's like I don't know. I don't believe anything anymore.
I make brick. I can make brick. I can make cement, and I can mix it with whatever kind of polymers I want to. I can mix it with whatever kind of gems I want to.
You
I
need
can
to
mix it
put
with
glitter in
blood.
it.
I can put glitter in it. And
Yeah.
the more water that hits that structure, it makes the inside dense, and the outside might peel away, but you can put things on the outside of that. I just think we can create so much that until you touch and manipulate all this stuff, people that don't have any idea how this metal was put together. If you guys didn't know about welding, I would show you things and you would be like, oh my gosh, this witch, how on earth did she create a boat out of metal that weighs tons and floats on water? This doesn't even make logical sense. And so I just think a lot of the times in the world where we dissect things, most people have never built anything to see that it's not as hard or as magical or as like crazy as,
But
but if
you
you're,
know what's kind of magical, and I'm just gonna say this because I just was on an airplane going to Orlando and back, and it's kind of magical to think that a big hunk of flying metal is like floating in the sky.
Yeah.
That is like, I think we're just portaling when we do that shit.
Something's
It's totally
happening
off
when we
topic,
do
but
that
I'm just
shit.
saying it's weird.
Yeah. I don't
It-
know. I don't know, Cheney.
I met, I have a guy friend of
Sorry.
mine and he's like he did excavations in Florida and he found all this proof of humans living alongside mastodons. And, you know, pretty much it's called the Vero Man. Everyone can look into it. And every single elite museum tried to come and have him donate all his work to the museum. Donate it. Pretty much they like a musician that makes something. They're like, "Here, we're going to buy your album and then shelf it." So nobody's ever going to hear your album and you're never going to be able to play anywhere live. And he's like, I can't afford to donate this stuff. It's my life's work. And so nobody ever finds out about this part of history. It becomes this thing that because he won't let the elite take it and mix it into their story, it won't ever become a part of history. So how much changes if humans live alongside mastodons? How much changes if there's mastodons in Florida? How much changes if there's technology under Las Vegas and Disney World that's older than the pyramids? And that's why we keep building on top of things. And so I think the structures that they allow us to see it's really the ones underneath the structures that they put all the glittery lights on.
And that's what's kind of interesting about Israel, actually, because I don't know if you guys know this, before they build anything new, they have to excavate. Their Department of Archaeology has to come in and excavate to see what's underneath.
And you have to get an okay before anything's allowed to ever be told in history. And then think about how many layers it has to go through before the Rockefeller education system allows you to learn this is the beginning of the world. These are the Great Pyramids. I don't know. And it's like the same. We're all still dissecting the same shit we learned in elementary school.
Yeah. So, okay,
It's
how does
like
one become
easy
Laura
brainwashing.
Craft and like actually go and I want to do it. Like, how do I actually go and be one of these people to go to these ancient sites that no one's touching and
People
just
have to
go there and
okay
do
you.
it? Why?
It's
What the
because you have to
fuck?
get all these things signed. Everything's the Antarctic Treaty. If you want to study anything that's not part of the thing that they're allowing to be the story, you have to get so many signatures and so many dignitaries and so many politicians, and they won't even let you in there.
What if I join a secret cult or a secret society? Would they let me in then?
Well, I don't know the secret. I don't know, maybe probably.
No, there's this episode of SpongeBob where they're kind of SpongeBob and Patrick are doing this whole like secret society thing. I think with the Magic Concha, it might be the wrong episode, but like Squidward's getting pissed the whole time because he doesn't know the secret, and there really is no secret. The secret is they're just being goofy and they say they have a secret. So like these secret societies, it's very potentially the same idea. It's like, no, we just have a club. Really, we're hanging out and you're
We're
on
just
the
making
outside.
money.
That's just all. Yeah.
And that's it. And you're not part of it.
Yeah.
Boo-hoo.
And you want to know, you want, that makes us more exclusive, right? Like it makes other people feel left out. And
Well,
on
you
the
can't help
outside.
the questions when you see shit like this. Like,
Yeah.
who built that? Why were they there? What were they used for? Like, what was their purpose? And all these fucking questions, and it's just unanswered. We guess at this point. We kind of know, but like we're guessing at this point. And it's easy if we could just go there without signing anything or signing our fucking life force to somebody, to give somebody permission who has authority over me, which I don't believe anyone should. It's just mind-boggling.
Lucy Rose in the chat asked about the Dream app. And I'm going to say I think she's asking like what I did my dream mapping on, and it's an app called Freeform.
Freeform.
Yeah.
So you can map all your dreams on there?
Yeah. So sorry, it's breaking up the conversation, but I just saw the question. I figured I'd address it.
No worries.
Yeah.
You're totally allowed to do that. Did you want to add anything to this, Mark?
Oh, I just thought it'd be relevant to what
It's
we're
It
talking
is
about.
very.
It's gorgeous. I love camels.
Well, and on the point of like Egypt and whatnot, I'm totally for being open-minded about what this is really telling us, and if it's really what they say it is, I'm totally open to that level of skepticism. But what I think is interesting about the pyramids is like the sheer weight of the stones. We don't have machines today that could lift them, right? That's not saying that humans couldn't figure out a way to create them, though, because we know that we could concoct a geopolymer liquid mixture that will harden into stone. And I mean, that's what cement is, right? All of our roads are asphalt, which is a liquefied kind of form of stone. It's actually liquid as it's on the ground. That's why it's like freezing and you know creating potholes if you live in a place like me in the Northeast where the roads are littered with potholes because the road's freezing and then thawing each year. But I think when it comes to the pyramids themselves, it's not so much about it as a building, but more of it as a device. Because when you look at the size of it, its placement on the earth, and its possible function as a machine. I mean, I've seen some authors speculate that it was a giant death ray. I've seen some speculate that it created free energy. I've seen some speculate that it was like a chemical plant where they created all sorts of geopolymers that they would then use to create other buildings. And I mean, Egypt is littered with buildings, but as you pointed out, Cheney, very, great point, is there are pyramids all over the world. I mean, even in places that you wouldn't consider pyramids. I mean, Central America and Egypt get the most attention, but there are, great structures made out of all sorts of materials all over the planet that have lasted for a long time. Most of them are stone, but not all of them. And yeah, it's really interesting to think, we're being led astray on what this is all really about. So your skepticism is extremely valuable in this conversation because the Egyptologists and the archaeologists who are studying this stuff, they're completely missing the mark. They're trying to talk about this thing as a giant tomb, and they just built this so that they could bury their pharaoh in there, and he's safe and sound in there, and that's all it was about. Don't ask any more questions. It's just a giant coffin, and the topic's dead, like the guy in the coffin. Don't ask any more questions beyond that. So I think that's really a big point of contention with this whole topic, is like they're clearly lying to us about what Egypt is really all about. Whether that means Egypt, all these structures were built more recently than they're telling us, that's possible. Maybe it has something to do with this ancient time before the flood, right? That's possible. And again, like to your point earlier, or your question about like why are they obsessed with all the symbolism from Egypt? Like, well, maybe this is where these stories about these gods or whomever took place, right? Where humanity was created in this
Maybe all the lands were all together at one point and
oh,
just separated, and it was all one civilization that had these structures everywhere, and then just slowly just drifted.
See, I
well,
can't get into
humanity.
Pangea because that's one of the things they taught us in kindergarten too.
Yeah.
I feel like all the stuff they taught us in kindergarten is the biggest
Well, here's the
bullshit.
thing: when
It
when that
looks it.
idea when
I
that
know. I
idea
feel like we're
came
an
out,
expanding Earth theory, if anything, or like the flood as it comes up, it would make the highest mountain points look like kink. They look like they attach.
Or maybe it's just the land's just, receding and, like almost like the breath of Earth. It has its like cycles where it rises and then it comes down again, rises and comes down again. That's also another theory because they say Earth breathes in that sense. So I don't know.
I think you need the word earth and breath.
Well,
When
yeah, and shul,
when
the
the
whole
idea
idea.
of plate tectonics and Pangea came out, it was not popular. Everybody laughed at the guy. They said, "You're crazy. That's stupid." But like it or not, believe them or not, because I don't always believe scientists, but the scientists have theoretically proved that whole idea. I tend to think that it's more about what you guys are saying, where the earth is kind of breathing, where it's expanding and condensing. And
Yeah,
also, another aspect that the mainstream likes to ignore is the cataclysms. So, we have evidence of giant asteroids and different, celestial events happening and affecting the planet, and that's always like really undervalued when you look at history, and I think it
yeah.
shouldn't be, you
And
know.
also, you should take consideration of like the whole black sun theory and the center of the earth and that different idea of not the NASA way of looking at Earth, but the whole idea of it being a plane inside something. I'm not going to say flat Earth, but just that whole idea and that center space where the black sun could be is where all matter is formed. And it just like expands from that center point outwards. So it's like that expanding earth theory, and we're just like in one part of it
Do
in
you
this
think
like petri
these
dish.
all these things we theorize, like even the idea, I can get down like in my head condensing energy like a power plant or just making like a foundry. This makes more sense of why you need thick cement walls, like of like than a tomb any day of the week. And so if there was these power plants all over the planet, uh maybe they were attached to some other grid somehow. That's where I do think the ancient Antiquitech idea is so interesting. I saw somebody in the chat bring up like earth ships and stuff. I Is this all stuff that you would have a secret society to keep from people?
I think so, because the idea of like being inside some people call it that prison idea, like you're stuck in a realm, like you can't leave, and that kind of will drive people mad to that idea because it's like, okay, we can handle that. But some people, like, they'll go mad and, they don't want to be here. They want to escape it. They can't, that claustrophobic idea is like, oh my God, I'm in a jail. What? So I think maybe that's what they're hiding, what this realm is, who rules it. They know the secret of who the ruler is, and they feed us a lie. And my gut is always going towards that for some reason. Like they know some truth that they don't want us to know about, and they feed us this mass lie. And why I say that many will be deceived. And it's like, it's a joke on us. So I don't know. I ask these questions because they know something we don't. They
Like
they
we all
control,
died and we're just computer programs
or
and
that,
we're filling it in. We're
and
filling
they
in
know
the
it's a
blanks of
game. Yeah.
lives.
Yeah. So many fucking ideas.
We're already in the AI of it all, the matrix of it all.
I don't know. Like, are we angels? And like we said, hey God, like I'm kind of bored not having a free will. So like, can you just create like a simulation where we could just tap in and just like have fun in? And then all right, but in order to get out, it's gonna be a mission. And if you don't get it right, you're gonna restart over and over. Game over, restart, game
Do you
over,
think
restart.
anything with the secret
The Earl Growth.
societies could, like, if none of this other stuff matters, if the secret societies have figured a way how to walk into life after death, so to speak? Because when I've sat at a lot of the Masonic rituals after somebody's passed away, it does look like a confidence and a ritual that they already know. They like whatever they're playing through, and whatever the finite ritual is of that has nothing to do with all the other rituals they've done. They know their buddy isn't in there anymore. And it's different than just I always go back to Peggy Sue Got Married, if you've ever seen that movie, and how she time travels, and the only way she can get back into her real body in a parallel universe is by going to her grandfather, who is like a Shriner Mason. They don't say, but he's part of some secret society in her town, and he knows the tricks of time travel.
It's a fucking weird ass realm, yo. I'm telling you. They know something. I know they know something. And what I'm saying is making sense. I swear, like, call me blasphemous or whatever, but like, when you really think about it, and they know the truth, right? And you see the shit that's going on, and they're the controllers of this realm. And they know, like, by fucking killing people and vaccinating them and all this shit and trafficking and organ trafficking, don't you think that they would be like good people, like not doing this shit if they knew the truth of God and what he would do? So it's
What about
like,
if you don't there's no
well,
such thing as a
that's
God and what he would do, you're just here and you figured it out, like you're part of a secret society that you can walk into another vessel again and again and again and again. So instead of like the plebs and the all of us where you get reset every 88 years and that's your time travel, they get to remember theirs. And so how long until you're like, they're I'm just helping
vampires.
level them up.
I feel
Fucking
like we were
vampires.
kind of onto something though when we were talking about dreams last week. When you, Cheney, you and I looked at each other and you said something about the words in a dream and how it's like AI writing. And we were both like, oh shit. Okay, so because I do think dreams are a program. I think all of this is a program. But what got me is even thinking on that theory a little bit longer, because one of the tricks to lucid dreaming is to search for your hands in your dream, because you will find your hands. Like, so if you make a conscious intention to look for your hands in your dreams, like, you know, you're always doing stuff with your hands. You're usually first person, sometimes you're third person, but usually you are like doing something, opening a door, or, you know, driving something.
Getting your
So
nails done.
yeah, getting your nails done, washing dishes, something, but you're always doing something with your hands. So if you make a conscious intention to look for your hands, and when you find your hands to wake up in a dream, you know, you'll realize that you're dreaming. But the thing is that when you do it, it's really freaking weird. Like, what else has an issue with hands? AI, right? But first time I found my hands intentionally in a dream, my fingers were fused together.
Like it
And
takes
AI
you
can't
out.
do hands.
And it can't do words at all. If no matter what words you beg AI to try to write you, it gives you some sigils back. And
Well, that's lesser magic AI. If you get high magic AI, you can do hands, you can do teeth, faces, words, you can do
You know
Well,
what?
everything.
yeah.
You're right.
Well, once you
that's
get
like
used to it,
dreaming.
you do start to see your hands. You can, like, I will see my own hands and my hands will look normal, but it took me a while for them to not look like weird fingernails or my fingers fused together, or, you know,
And
like
now Abby
purple.
can see full advertisements in her dreams.
I do. I
Like
get
she sees full
advertisements.
words. She gets full things, but she's been practicing for a long time. So a lot of people, they're like, oh my gosh, I saw a clock in my dream for the first time, or a digital clock, but it was just lines. But if you practice, you'll start seeing clearly.
Abby's like, please, I already got a Swatch watch.
I think I did have a Swatch dream, as a matter of fact.
I have a
I don't know
Swatch
if I
watch
wrote it down.
thing. You just said something like you just anchored my head into I have a Swatch watch. The AI knows I have a Swatch watch thing. So it's the one thing I never tell anyone about. I'm never looking for, but AI knows, and so it gives me Swatch watch advertisements. And I'm like, that's just between you and me.
Not anymore.
I was having an interesting conversation, speaking of the AI, just about AI gaslighting with Lindsay from Rogueways, and all of how they, change your words all the time. Da, 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 da. But did I already say this last week? So much of the conversation, I don't know what I had with you in person or if I
I
said it on
know.
air.
Right?
I know we talked about
We
it in
talked
person.
about
I
so
don't,
much. Holy
but we were
shit.
also in person on the air. So
I know. So I don't remember or not. So I apologize to anyone that's rehearing this, but I don't think so because I feel like I was on her show this week with this part of it. Is she was live on a show, and when she pulled up her screen to show people, on the side of her screen was all dildos and like sex lube and stuff. And she was like, "What?" If you know Lindsay, she's not this person. Like she's like, I don't look up that stuff. She's like, I talk about like sacred yoni stuff, like, but never like this type of stuff. And so she's like, here's another way of just them, like you're showing somebody your screen or like, hey, you guys, look at this story. And your advertisements on the side are a thing. And I was just thinking how last week I showed you guys my screen about something, or the week before, and all the advertisements were the top from Inception.
Well, okay, so because we were talking about how changing the words and stuff, and this wasn't even like an autocorrect. This wasn't even like predictive text. I was sending, and we had talked about this, and I'm sending an email at work. It was actually on my way to the airport, so I was trying to do it, in the car really quick. But I looked in, I replied to this email, and I said I put it here, and the word "put," which is like nowhere near this on the keyboard. I looked back at it, and luckily I read it before I hit send. It had wrote "fart" in there, and I was like, "Oh my god!" If I would have sent that, I would have died. I would have like.
I re-say this, and I know I've told the audience this, but it's so horrifying to me. I wrote one of my friends who was going through a time, and she is a smoke show. She's a goddamn dragon slayer, and she was being hard on herself. And I was just like, "Oh, you are such a baddie." And it wrote, "You are such a fatty." Are you kidding me? I just wanted to throw my phone in the ocean. Like, how do you even come back from that?
Oh my god! Did you? Oh my god!
But I will also say
look at your
this.
keyboard. "Put" and "fart" are not even close.
Fart, the word, if you accidentally type it, if you accidentally say it, it's just as bad as if you accidentally do it.
It is.
I was marrying people once, and in my whole
I'm laughing
entire
already.
spiel, it was like, oh, blah, blah, blah. It was such a great spiel. I'm great at marrying people, but somewhere in the words, like one of the girls' names and a part. And so it made me say, and every time I practice, I'm like, I'm accidentally going to say fart. Like I knew I was going to accidentally do it. And then in front of everyone, and it's like in this whole spiel about being your yoked marriage, yada, yada, yada. And then I accidentally said the word fart in front of the whole church, in front of the whole, and I might as well just let one rip because it was just as embarrassing saying it on accident as it would have been if I farted. Even saying the word right now, farted, I feel like, ew.
It's embarrassing, right? It's
So
an embarrassing word.
It's not, it's against my character. I'm not one of those girls that just like, I'm ladylike in that way. I'm old fashioned and ladylike in that way.
Listen, hey, it happens, bro. It's natural. Sometimes like people have accidents, it's part of human nature. Like you gotta let it out one way.
If
It
I
is
had a
what it
bigger
is.
house, there would be so many privacy rules between me and my wife. She is like a frat boy with tits sometimes, and I'm just like, gross. I'm just like in my head, I'm just like for real, I think this sometimes. Fucking pig. I'm probably getting a good thing she doesn't watch the Secret Society of Good Guys. You fucking pig. If you knew my wife, that just the idea of me calling her a fucking pig would be ridiculous.
I know.
But anyways, yeah, maybe that's the secrets they're keeping. Is they're all like farting in a jar.
Yeah, didn't that girl like get like injure herself by doing that? Who was
There
selling her
have been-
farts?
Somebody wrote in the chat, chicks don't fart, they queef. Those are totally different bodily.
God
Yeah.
save the queef. God
Yeah.
save the queef.
If you want your Secret Society of Good Guy sweatshirt or t-shirt, you can get God Save the Queef on projectchaney.com.
Wasn't that the perfect?
I like
That was
that.
perfect.
I like
But
that.
yeah, queefs are not farts.
Those are sexy.
I'm glad we cleared that up.
I never even thought anyone thought that until I just read it. And
If
I
you
was
know,
like,
you
I have
know.
to clear this up.
If you know, you know. That's all.
What are we here if not here to spread that? That seems like a truth we can all agree upon, that queefs and farts are not the same.
They're not the same.
There were secret societies in like I think 18th century London where they would get around at a bar and have farting competitions, and that was kind of like one of the more mundane of the secret societies. But Thomas pulled up a book we were looking at that had like hundreds of different names of secret societies, and there's a miscellaneous
Yeah, it's
section.
called Secret
I wouldn't
Societies
be
from All Ages or something.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if
Uh,
there was a group called the Flatulence Brotherhood or something
Can-
like that. It's
Can you light
definitely
farts on fire? Like, can you
Yes.
actually really do that?
If
yeah.
you
My
do it too
grandfather
close to a
used to do that
fireplace,
every Thanksgiving.
What's the gas in the gas?
Methane.
Yeah.
For real?
and just so you guys know, it's the same as like a hairspray bottle or anything you're gonna light on fire. Is that flame's a fast motherfucker and will crawl right back up the fire. Like if you have enough gas coming out of your ass and like fart into a fireplace, the flame will crawl up the gas. And I have watched more than one guy friend fart in a fireplace and burn his asshole.
Oh my god.
Like,
That's
and
what
it
you
does
get, you
like
crude
a
motherfucker.
whoosh where you're like, oh my gosh, it looked like you just did a spell in there.
Yeah, that's why you need to be
Maybe
wearing,
it is.
That's why you need to be wearing pants, preferably slacks, and use a lighter, and you'll be fine. I've seen my
You think-
grandfather do it.
I
You
love
think
Yeah,
bathroom
that's
humor.
smart.
You
Crowley
guys
ever
are so
farted
fun.
into a fire?
Huh?
You think Aleister Crowley ever farted into a fire?
Damn right he did. Yes, that motherfucker
He's
for
done
sure
more
did.
than just that. I'm sure he's done all kinds of unholy things to a fire.
I feel like farting into a fire might be a
That was
new
just like first base
initiation.
for him.
Farting in a
Cheney's writing
fire.
it down.
Yeah, because I feel like the would you fuck your clone? You know you're part of the Golden Shit Club, and I just think, have you ever farted into a fire? And if you haven't,
We're
A
getting
fire
personal
on
here.
the ground? Can it be a fire from like a grill lighter or something like that?
I've never farted
Fire
into
from
a fire.
within.
It seems like I would want to, like on
Kundalini
my
fart?
bucket
Believe
list.
that.
Have you
Like-
ever had a Kundalini fart where it lights from your Kundalini energy? Is that possible?
I re-fart back up.
What? What does that mean?
You know how people are like, I nut up my spine, so I ejaculate.
Oh my gosh.
So
Well,
instead I infart, like you're just like, I was gonna fart.
'Cause that's where
There's-
bad ideas come from, right?
Yeah. Or I had a friend that anytime that he burped, he would always say, smart fart took the elevator. All the time. It's dad humor. Yeah, I don't know how we ended up on farts. On
AI gaslighting.
yeah, AI gaslighting. Yeah, it's probably, I'm surprised they
Literally
haven't added
gas.
fart noises in where you like move in a chair and you're like, I swear it was the chair, and then you can never recreate it. I'm surprised AI hasn't started doing that to us in chat rooms, but we don't know if it has.
You just gave it the idea.
What if like AI does a sound over me and I don't hear it? And you guys are all just like, oh, Cheney just totally let one rip and we just move on because that's what we do in society now. And I'm like, I have no idea that you guys all think this. This would be another form of AI gaslighting. I did give it the idea just now. This is what I'd do if I was Elon Musk. Anyways.
Oh, I thought you were gonna do something. I was like waiting. I was like, what's she doing?
Same.
Like Layla coming out of
She's like, this is what I would do.
I'm like, oh wait. I put my shit down. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, I don't have anything written on my list about any. I didn't look up anything about Illuminati or secret societies.
I got one because I
What?
found out when my grandparents passed away that they were both part of Opus Dei. You ever heard of Opus Dei
Oh,
before?
yeah. Oh,
They
they're the
flatulate
Catholic
their
sect.
back?
Yeah, they heard them.
Well,
both.
so that is like the most hardcore of the Opus Dei. There's like a whole bunch of different factions like within Opus Dei. Those are like the hardcore dudes, but they make up like less than 5% of Opus Dei are the ones that do all the flagellation.
Ow.
Why does flagellation sound like flatulation?
I was just gonna say that, Abby, and I was like,
Accurate
oh
to
my
the part of it
gosh.
all.
Somebody found out their secret and they were like, no, we don't fart. We beat ourselves with a whip.
It just sounds like it.
I'm
It's like the
telling you.
chair, damn it.
The Opus Dei was a big thing for them to tell us about in Secret Society of Good Guys, or in look at Da
Wait a
Vinci Code.
Is there a
What?
pheromone in farts that people don't know about, like a hormone
Makes you
pheromone
go,
thing? No, because for some people, listen, this is a thing. Like their partners' farts don't smell to them. I swear, like this is a fucking thing. Like for some people, like I know partners, they're like, no, I don't smell my partner's farts. Like
I don't believe
smell
that
them.
for a second.
I don't either, because my ex-husband, like, he would
I
always
know a
joke and tell
couple.
people
I
that
know a few people.
his fart smelled like roses. So
You're
then,
like, what if you were going through just
That
like a
whole thing.
protein binge though, like just like eating nonstop bulk up protein? You're saying that wouldn't have any impact at all? You're eating like 4 or 5 steaks a day.
I don't
leaky
know. I
gut
really don't
syndrome.
know. I don't know. I probably would.
Sore. Abby,
What?
the pheromones, yeah, it makes you go. Ugh. Like I'm still
I
caught
think you're
there.
onto
I haven't
something.
moved on.
No, but for real, like I swear, I know a couple people. Like you said, oh, my husband's farts smell like roses. I don't smell them. Or like
Oh,
sometimes you
but
don't
he
even
was.
smell your own farts.
It
Like
was a joke we had though, because he would always say that, and his fart smelled like farts. They were disgusting and made me want to gag. But then he would say that, and people would be like, no, my farts don't smell. What do they smell like, Abby? I'm like, they smell like roses. It was just being an ass, but
I have
they didn't
I
smell
have
like
a
roses.
friend that anytime he farts and it smells like so gross, he'll always say something like, "Is someone baking cookies?"
dude, I love that we could talk about
then you're
farts
like,
and it's like not
you
a big
take a
deal. I
big
fucking
whiff,
love it.
like you're like, "Oh, you mother." Like, but I
Welcome
also
to the Golden Shit Club.
think that it's all on
We
food you eat.
flatulate instead of
Imagine it
flagellate.
matters if you and your partner eat the same foods. I do think there's some foods that permeate that somebody farts and it's like that smelled just like roasted garlic. And then it permeates. Like I maybe knew someone once that smoked so much weed once that they farted and the person next to them was like, I feel like we could have put a carb in your ass and smoked it. So I feel like sometimes it just things go right through you and other times it's like your system is corrupt.
It sounds like they were
Alcohol
swallowing the
corrupts
smoke.
system.
I don't know if you ever done that before, where like you're smoking and then like an hour later you go to burp and like a huge hit comes out.
I'm gonna start swallowing my smoke more for magic tricks.
You batty.
Fatty. You fatty.
You're such a fat
Was that a
ass.
mic check?
Yeah. Mic check. Oh shit. But the Revenge of the Nerds, that's like a fraternal show, and they all go on stage and have a burping competition that is like really, really, really old that they carry on. But then every phase of their hazing seems like it's kind of wild. And the media wanted us to know about frat hazing. Like they gave us Skull and Bones. I almost feel like that's when all these quote unquote secret societies just become normal fraternities because they told us about them on TV. And we, for some reason, the media wanted us to know like these are the biggest party schools in the country, and here's all the kids doing alcohol, and here's all the ways we need to stop hazing. It was like a berry almost of secret societies to give us like here's Bert Kreischer, the biggest party animal on Rolling Stone, and he's still in our zeitgeist as a Joe Rogan comedian, but he really just came there because he was like the representation of what it meant to party on campus, and they had to show us that before they knocked that down and said hazing's awful. So is there any like merit to hazing?
Well, it definitely still goes on in certain places. I think in certain aspects of the military, you get hazed when you're. I think Thomas could speak on that. Weren't you in the Marines, Thomas?
No, definitely not. I was in the chair force, but they have very strong anti-hazing policies now because the Navy, they had this crossing ritual, and I think it might have been Navy SEALs, and someone exposed it. They got like undercover video footage, and they were taking like the little insignia, and what they were doing is they would just pin it right to your skin, like without your shirt on, and you'd have to wear it around. And that wasn't even that bad a hazing. That's like a tiny little bit of like a superficial flesh wound. there's way worse forms of hazing that go on, but hazing's almost its own little secret society military. Like you can get in
Oh, yeah.
very big trouble if you get caught hazing people, yet like it still happens.
The
So
shellback ceremony happens on the equator. It has to happen. It's just part of it. You cross the equator, and you will to become a shellback, you have to go through the hazing ceremony.
you
Has to
gotta wear a
happen.
dress, right?
There's a lot to it. You might have to eat like olives out of a fat guy's belly button. They're crawl through trash. There's a lot of things. Yeah. But like, even, speaking to my coach today, like I asked him about hazing specifically, and he said, you will be, he said, he likened it to the military. He said, you're tested heavily, very heavily. He said, you're broken down. He said, we don't just let you in. We will break you down and make your life hell. And he said, because that's how we figure out if you're worthy or not. Because if you can't pass, then you don't deserve to be there. But then we build you back up, and you're made stronger, better, smarter man.
This sounds like a Lifetime movie. I just got to say that.
It does, but it was like perfect. It was a really good answer.
Like, yeah, we beat you, but it's like you'll like it afterwards. It'll make you stronger.
Well, isn't that the way isn't that the way boot camp is though?
Yeah, but that's state endorsed. That's the macrocosm. You're not supposed to do the micro.
The spectrum of coercion, like that's on the scale that MK Ultra is on. It's just different degrees.
It is, but it has a place, because even like, I will say this, like, as much as I feel like I got mind fucked going through boot camp, it did teach me a lot of self-discipline. I mean, I did not have it. I was always late to every job I had been to. Like, I was the person who's like 15, 20 minutes late every freaking day, and then after boot camp, I was the person who's half an hour early, because on time is late. So like, I did pay attention to detail. I cared about my appearance. I made sure I didn't have strings hanging from my clothes. I did things that before didn't seem to matter to me, and I didn't really have the discipline to, I don't know. So there is a place for it, is what I'm saying. It does make you better. It's the idea of, like Carlos Castaneda, he says, your petty tyrant, because your petty tyrant teaches you, like the people who are bullshit in your life teach you the best lessons.
I kind of think there's a place for hazing. I think there's a place, even if it happens in a way that it's not called hazing, that we all kind of do to each other, like feel each other out, because we don't want to be led by weak people. Whatever that means. It's not just a physical, it's like a mental and a spiritual. And so I think if
like
your society's strong, you have like a hazing on the way up.
I think it's like a verbal, emotional, maybe even mental sort of child of this near-death experience that was much more common maybe in the past, and it's still common in certain secret societies. But like, for instance, Skull and Bones, they'll put them in a coffin and make them confess. And I mean, I'm sure the Masons do something similar, where they put a hood over your head and make you think that you're about to be executed, and then you realize, no, you're actually reborn as a initiated brother, right? It's this whole near-death experience. And in like tribal societies, it's even crazier. For instance, my good friend Amos, who grew up in Arizona, and he told me about a Native American rite of passage where they would basically insert eagle claws in your chest and strap you up to a big tree or a pole standing out of the ground, and you'd hang there by yourself for days until you fell off.
Wasn't this the second Ace Ventura Pet Detective plotline?
I'm sure Hollywood went and blasphemized something sacred to the Native Americans. I wouldn't put it past them. But
I think
yeah,
they made him stand on like a pole on like 1 foot or something. But it's like the exact same premise of hazing.
Yeah.
And in the BDSM culture, they have where you pierce all down your chest plate right here,
It's
and then
very
you can
similar to
hang from
that.
the roof.
Yeah, it's like that hanging thing in BDSM where they would hang from like an eagle claw, and it was a sign of your manhood if you survived and walked off and made it back to your tribe, and not everybody survives that kind of ritual too. Like it's a very intense thing. So yeah, I think the whole concept of like coming to that close to death, we don't really have that as much in culture today, and that's why young people do things like get involved with gangs or go speeding down the highway in a fast car or do a ton of drugs and have a nihilistic attitude about life, is because we don't really have that backbone of like structure in our at least speaking to the men. I don't know if there's an equivalent with women, but there should be, I'm sure. I mean, maybe childbirth would be a rite of passage for women or something along those lines. But yeah, I think that's kind of lacking in our society. It's probably a big reason why a lot of people do join the military or become a police officer. Or for in my life, I turned to martial arts, and that brought me a ton of discipline and set me on the path that I'm on now, which is a productive one, I think. So
Do you think like part of fraternal orders or these kind of hazing rituals is to show you that your actions have consequences to others?
well, and
Yeah,
also
because it makes you better for the society, right?
yeah,
Not
it's
just for your group, but for the whole.
yeah, like a colony mentality, like the hive kind of mentality. It's not necessarily comforting to think that our society wants us to just conform, because everybody has this instinct of individuality, which is our God-given creative right to be creative. But I think also like there's got to be a balance between conforming to what's good for society and being creative and bringing new things in. The problem now is, you're conforming to a society that is not in your best interest, right? So that's why so many people are interested in conspiratorial ideas or thinking skeptically about the world, because clearly there are corrupt forces and insidious even forces at work on the global governmental scale, wars and genocides and so on and so forth.
Do you think the coffin ritual or the execution ritual in a way is the same as maybe an adult baptism ritual where you're just being born again under this new school of thought? And so they want you to die as your old self so that you will come out like you're no longer, Cheney the this, you're Cheney of this group. Like the whole matters now. Like, but not just that you have responsibility to the whole, but the whole has responsibility to you.
It's
And
it's the same thing in a lot of ways, because like you're going into the earth in a coffin, right? And the earth is life, but it's also death, right? But so is water. Water is life and death too. You can drown in water or you can nourish yourself with water. I think that's definitely inherent to the metaphor. Probably, cleansing too has a big aspect to it, because there's a time in human history where we didn't have, you know, the public infrastructure that we do now, and things were a lot dirtier. So like to be clean was really like a life-changing thing. So it might have factored in like teaching people about bathing somehow. It had to be like a spiritual idea, because that's how they saw the world. They didn't necessarily think of it as like, oh, I have to be clean because there's bacteria. They thought like, if I don't be clean, I'm not holy, and if I'm not holy, I could get, fall under the prey of demons, and they'll make me ill. And I mean, I still kind of subscribe to that being possible now. Like if you don't keep a clean life, you have like like a hoarder's house or something. Like a lot of darkness is attached to people like that, and even just like cleaning your house, every week has like a tremendous effect on your psychology, your just your mental health. So yeah, I think there's like a spiritual dimension to the whole baptism thing, and even the near death experience. Like now it's like an accident when people have a near death experience, but what if there's a time in human history where they forced that upon you because they knew it gave you this like invincibility factor or like this wisdom? Because if you talk to people, like I've had people on my podcast who have had near death experiences, and it's like you could tell they're a changed person, and a lot of times they'll describe like how their life was before and how their life's changed since. And it seems most of the time like it could be a very positive thing. I'm sure it's not always, if there's a lot of trauma associated with it, that has to be dealt with. But, when you go to the brink of almost dying and then come back and you see like heaven or what these people report seeing, other dimensions, their passed away loved ones, I think it really instills like this sense of like eternity and hope that, yeah, we as human beings come into this form, but we are just in this form for a short amount of time and go back to that, whatever that is,
Yeah.
that we get a little glimpse of when we do
It
have.
is rare you watch somebody battle with death in any form and that like they're shitbag after. Like it's a very rare thing that you watch that go down even on the quick scale where you're like, "Oh my gosh, I almost drowned." Like you watch somebody change like a drug trip. And I think
I
that
also
is
I also feel like you can have a soul death too. Like when you're like at the bottom of the bottom and like you just don't want to live like life anymore. And this is like an experience I've had where my life has changed. And like he said, like people seeing like other beings or going to a different dimension. I've had that experience through Dream Realm where I truly believe either it was God or an angel that literally saved me. And from that moment on, like my whole fucking life turned around. Like I stopped drinking, I stopped going out, I stopped partying. I just like celibacy. I just everything just fell into place. Ba, 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 ba. And I knew what I needed to do. I knew I needed to move to Florida. I came out here, and ever since I've been following this gut instinct, and it's just been bringing me higher and higher and higher. And yes, I'm going through trials, but it's like this soul death experience that I'm not going to compare to near death experience, but it feels like a death experience in that sense of being reborn again, like being saved.
I've got a theory that that's what first communion used to be. That they used to just give you like a massive heroic dose. They brought you to what would feel like the brink of death, and then bring you back. Because that makes
Hmm.
so much more sense.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can see that.
and then
'Cause
there's
that's when you
also
would be in communion.
yeah, and then like in a weird trauma way, it's the only one that can take away the pain is the one instilling it. And so if I'm the one bringing you back from this death and this brink when you see my face first or your brother's face first or your sorority's face first, they become like they're imprinted on you. They just saved your life. It's like something a different kind of admiration for each other
Well,
that you have.
this is how Disney movies work, where they kill your parents and then they save you, like 5 minutes later with like their intellectual property, so that the next time you see it, it instills that same feeling of like, oh, you saved me in my time of need when everything else was going horrible and the hunter shot my mom. Like Thumper comes along, and it's the same premise, I think.
Yeah. That's where I feel like somewhere the magic of whatever the old magic is, the old world chaos, the old realm chaos that we're going to call it, because the old realm chaos is the only thing that defeats a new world order. So it's somewhere they knew meme magic, but called it something different. Somewhere they knew Disney magic, but called it something different. Somewhere they knew what podcasting and broadcasting was, but they called it something different. And so it's almost like these ways now of like us unraveling maybe because we have the luxury of getting to speak to each other right now everywhere, the open minds enough to hear each other. But it's like a super important thing that I feel like most of the secret societies throughout time, it was only the elite that were allowed to talk like this. It was only the philosophers. You had to get to the philosophy level of the thing to even be able to speak like this to anyone. And so it was information was always hoarded on every level, whether secret society or not. Sometimes it was just caste systems or money.
Well, there's one exception to that rule, which is one of the more important ones. The Eleusinian mysteries. They woke, or they allowed people of all sorts of, I think it was co-ed, all classes, all creeds, everything. The rule was that you could only go one time, but if you went, you might be the chamber pot dude, and you look over to your right and you see like like a king or a prince or someone in the same room as you. And that was, I think, like this massive experience to realize that everyone was kind of the same. Just like the Skull and Bones, they've got this painting, and it's got I don't know if Mark knows what the phrase is, but it basically is like a king, a pauper, a prince, and it's basically saying like which one are they, and it just has 4 skulls on the wall, and it's basically implying like it's only the deeds that you do in life that live on, and that like who you actually were means nothing the second that you die. So that's that same concept with the Eleusinian mysteries, was that everyone were permitted at least once. But then once you went outside of the mysteries, then the class system exists all of a sudden.
Huh. Yeah, I think even doesn't the Eleusinian mysteries go? Is that like with Hellenistic? Is that somewhere? I feel like they link up. I mean, I know everything does, but I feel like really quickly all those Elysian thoughts all attached to Helen and those kind of goddess of thinking. And then Helen, I think, is a very Layla and I were talking a lot about Helen and how so much of the thought of her thing is through Hellenistic. And so I just think that's so interesting of how much you don't really hear about the Elysian mysteries and Helen and that school of thought, maybe in secret societies.
Well, I always understood Hellenistic to almost be like the Chex Mix of like beliefs.
It was like Episcopalian of Christianity. Everybody always says Episcopalian's just a watered down Catholic. They just don't want all the rituals. They're like, I don't have time for all that.
Catholicism has a lot of ritual in it, right? I don't know much about the like ritual aspect of Catholicism.
Yeah, so I grew up Roman Catholic, so I guess like all the weird mysticism and like secret rituals and like chanting, it always felt really normal to me. But yeah,
I
people that
like the
didn't grow up in
chanting.
that, I kind of like it too, but
Yeah,
it also
just makes
feels
it
so
feel raw.
serious.
I
I
don't
remember the
know.
first time that I went to, I think like a Protestant mass, and they were like watching clips of Forrest Gump during mass, and they were drinking grape juice and like singing and dancing. And I don't know, that felt way more fun to me than getting yelled at for like maybe nodding off or like not kneeling quick enough.
Hmm.
How about the Eucharist?
How about the Eucharist? A little bland.
What is the Eucharist? What is
The
Eucharist
that?
is
body of Christ.
unleavened bread, but it's supposed to be the body of Christ. The big thing was the transubstantiation.
That's
The
what it is. Yeah.
transubstantiation is when the cracker and the wine turns into the literal body and blood of Christ, and you
So
eat it and
that's
drink it. But
adrenochrome.
that's what I think was originally a mushroom.
Adrenochrome.
100%. That used to be a mushroom that they were giving to people, not a cracker.
Interesting. The Amanita muscaria, probably.
I think the Amanita muscaria, and then even the wine, which was the blood of Christ, that could have been a John Allegro holy blood, or not holy blood, sacred mushroom in the cross. But then when you see one of these Amanita muscaria mushrooms and out in the wild, after it hits the sun and it starts to dry and curl upwards, and then if it rains, that water pools in it, and the red pigment from the top of the cap seeps into the water, so it literally looks like a golden chalice with sangria in it, with
Oh
red
wow,
blood in it.
dude, I'm telling you, that's the key, bro.
I think that a lot
The
of
mixture.
I think the Catholic Church and a lot of the Eucharist had to do because they were actually blending together so many different religions, and some of those religions did take part in cannibalistic things. And so because they were doing that, they had to take part, like a mitre hat over here and part of Protestant religion over here and part of paganism over here and so they blended this all together because they were trying to rule an empire. So I think a lot of that is actual cannibalism that carries over. And it seems so heady to think about, but a lot of what they were trying to unite, even under the Constantine cross, was such different belief systems. They had to be really drastic about still representing those beliefs to the other. Like, whoa. We're not going to quite let you eat people, but we will let you pretend this wine is blood.
It's the blood of Christ.
And you can even pretend it's the blood of Christ, so it's your enemy. Like, I hate Christ. Like some of the people, depending on what you're doing with it, who knows? But that's just another way that I've heard about it being talked about. And this is so off topic, but I have to friggin' bring it up. But it's
Hit
bloody.
the like, hit the like, hit the like, hit the like.
It's bloody. It's bloody. Did you know it's only been 1 calendar year or less since because this is something that triggers the secret society of good guys when we're hanging out alone off air, is how some of the ridiculous things that women have to use every day are ridiculous. And one of them's tampons. And so did you know it's been less than 1 calendar year since they've been using actual blood to see what tampon works the best?
Yeah,
Less than 1 calendar year.
I know this.
This makes me insane. Like we've
I
just
know.
been fiddling around with a bunch of different fabrics inside of us for however many decades, and they just in less than 365 days are like, hey, since we figured the COVID thing out, let's go ahead and put real blood on these tampons and see if they actually work for women. Because
And
one
they
of the
don't.
things, this is a shout out to the girls out there, and I'm sorry you guys have to hear this. If you ever pull out dry cotton, it is one of the worst feelings in your whole entire existence. When I said that, it made so many girls kegel. Like girls in the audience, they just kegeled and they were like, "Oh, Cheney, I was about to fall asleep." Like it is the worst. It's one of the worst feelings. It's like one of the things that all girls go through that we never even talk about to each other, much less men. But the idea that they just started using blood in the less than 365 days on something that we put inside of us is crazy.
Yeah.
Bleached cotton, fiberglass. This is
Yeah.
all the stuff that's inside tampons, by the way. I'm just shouting out things of the stuff
Yeah.
we put. And the skin inside there is so precious and soft and all these things. Think of how many things we need it for, from sex to birth. Like not just and only because it's a self-cleansing organism that no matter how much they want to transgender and try to convince you, they cannot create that with science. They can create the pyramids, but they can't create a real vagina.
They can make a Chinatown copy of the original.
Yeah, they
but
can't
it'll
make a
never be original.
self-lubricating, dreamy
Just
vagina. They will
fucking
never have
saying.
the vagina Mary candle.
All right.
And so,
Mine's created by the divine.
yeah, that's like,
Motherfucker.
anyways.
Excuse me.
So
Sorry.
whatever. I just had to. I'm irritated
Yeah.
that they just started using real blood. So here we've been drinking body of Christ, but we just started. What we're using wine on tampons to test it. Anyways, back to secret
Vagina.
societies.
It's always the blue water
Vagina.
based on the commercials, right? They always got this blue water, so that's all they've been
Let's
testing
make
with.
that a shirt. Vagina.
Vagina.
Vagina. I like that.
I have a vagina.
In rainbow letters. Vagina.
I know I have a vagina meme somewhere.
I like that.
It came from, oh, I do. It's a picture. It's Rosie O'Donnell or Hillary Clinton, and a whole bunch of coronavirus is falling out of them. And it's Trump saying the virus came from vagina. I really did already, but this is like so long ago. It's like 3 timelines back that we were dealing with coronavirus cutouts of, hey, everyone in the world, here's what a coronavirus looks like. That was like, here's this image from Big Trouble in Little China of a guy with all eyeballs on, and it's like, this is the virus inside your body.
The weaponized
Anyways,
flu.
I won't fool this late, I guess.
Huh?
I said I won't bring up the Thule Society this late, I guess,
Why not?
because it
Yeah.
seems like the Thule Society could be a whole show.
Yeah, that's true.
But I have so many things that I think are secret societies that we don't talk about. Like in the Catholic Church, you have to go to different levels of the Catholic Church to learn different degrees of different secrets that the Catholic Church has, or different wording that everything means. Not if you're not Catholic, you can't even get the body of Christ here. I don't care if you're a Christian, you do not get to partake in the wine and the bread at this, not at this steeple. And so you don't have to do, don't come here, don't confess here. There's like, so that's just the Catholic
Well,
Church.
and you have to do First Communion, which is the very first of like the initiation rituals.
And you have to be baptized under whatever religion. But in like Hebrew, we're teaching all of our children a very specific language at a age, and they all have to know it. And I think this is
It's clever.
like, It's so clever. It's like the Hopi Indians teaching all their kids the ant language.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's like so smart.
I like how the community works, honestly. They, they have that base that Albanians might still have, kind of, sort of. That word of bond,
Well, I'm thinking back or to the whole Vatican of it all too. And their big vaults, and you have to be probably a certain tier in the priesthood to go down there and see what they
Oh,
have.
shit, yeah.
Yeah, the Pope doesn't get to go down there.
The Vatican Library.
The Pope is like as much power as the Queen of England or Britney Spears. This is just the head they put on to pacify the people.
So what's under the Vatican?
All the treasures of the
Like,
planet.
that's a whole, like, vagina, isn't it? Like, shaped like a vagina and a key and all that. And underneath, there's like a whole fucking skeleton city or something of bones and skulls and skull and bones. It's the skull and bones of it all. The myrrh, the mar.
Well, the skull of it all, I think, is interesting because all the powerful people and powerful secret societies throughout time, including the Catholic Church, you guys were all saying that they have to have a piece of a saint inside the church. If,
Yeah.
like, in the basement of the church, they have to have an actual piece of their bone or flesh. And so even in the skull and bones with Geronimo of it all, like, maybe there is a power that comes to a secret society if they have a relic or a body part, and the skull seems like the most powerful body part. Like some church in Florida or some church in wherever, they can get some tiny, piece of an elbow, but
Yeah.
if you have a skull of something, that's wild.
Do you know what a Mason told me what skull and bone means? Skull and
Pirate?
bones? No, it means what happens when your soul ascends. I'm like, you die. He's like, yeah, what's left behind after all the flesh and matter of you is gone? The skull and bones. So it's like a symbol of like you being here and you ascending. So it's like he went on and on about it, but I couldn't take all that information while I was bartending. So it sounded
I just
like
saw
chef's
something.
kiss.
I just saw something about Dan Aykroyd actually, and I know he's doing like this crystal head or it's crystal skull vodka,
Uh-huh.
but him and some other guy, like secret society stuff, like
Mhm.
made a crystal skull and put it in the Vegas pyramid or something. I don't know.
Well,
Or
there
is
was
it
a few of those
Zealand?
crystal skulls found, supposedly.
Dan Aykroyd's obsessed with UFOs. It's like
Yeah.
he's one of the people. He was like that generation's Tom DeLonge, and the crystal skull is, I think it's crystal skull tequila, and he's a big Nephilim. Dan Aykroyd's a big bitch, and he was also in the movie Dragnet with the Virgin Connie Swale with Tom Hanks. So I think that right there, you
And
don't
that
have to say no
movie is
more.
about
Memphis
Satan,
Pyramid.
a satanic
Thanks,
cult.
Donut.
It's such, that movie is worth a rewatch. Paranoid American. We should.
Which movie?
Dragnet with Tom
Dragnet.
Hanks. That's the movie that we
I don't
should
think I've
do for
ever
the
seen
Tom
it.
Hanks series. THC, the Tom Hanks conspiracy.
I'll watch it.
I love that.
Because I think everything could be attached to Tom Hanks, every single thing. But I definitely think the movie Dragnet with every symbol in it, every actor in it, it's wild. So, I mean, it's the Tom Hanks movie. Say no more. And they try to sacrifice a virgin. There's a big albino white snake. It's all set up like Bohemian Grove.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he's a big politician, and it's like that's running for office. So it's like he's attached to all this underground secret society stuff, and it's a comedy. It's Dragnet. It's based off the TV show.
Yeah, I'll watch that. Let's make a movie night or something.
Yeah, that's a Paranoid American
On
show.
Zoom.
Do like Tom
know?
Hanks Tuesdays or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. The Tom Hanks of it all. I have the
City
Forrest Gump.
Tuesday.
It's taken me forever to get the movie Forrest Gump all done. Like I have the pictures, like the just the movie Forrest Gump, because I'm like, oh, I'll get lost just in the Elvis of it all, and that's early in the movie.
Is he MAGA now? Tom Hanks?
No way.
There's a
I don't
picture
know.
of him floating around. I don't know. know, man. Who knows?
It's
AI.
it's anti
We blame
though.
AI.
It's the anti-MAGA shirt. So
What's
you
it
might
called?
have seen a meme where someone like inverted it.
Maybe. I don't know, but it said something with like Trump's hair on the side of the letter.
I think it's like
That's-
never Trump or something like that though.
Yeah, nah. Was it? I gotta look it up.
Yeah,
I
he's
gotta look it up.
Hollywood elite. They're all liberal. They all hate Trump. I mean, every president got mocked, but he
like,
got
why?
mocked by Hollywood and that crowd more than any other president ever has. I mean, even worse than Bush, and Bush was a Republican, But yeah, it's definitely. I would say that Thomas is probably on track with that. I've seen the same meme that you've seen where he's wearing that shirt, but I want to know what's up with the gloves, Tom Hanks. What's up with all those weird gloves, bro? What's up with all that?
Tom Hanks plasma
The
bag.
one I'm talking about says hope with Trump's, and it looks like a Q. I don't know if you could see it. Where am I?
I'm
Yeah,
sure
that's the fake one for sure.
somebody
Yeah.
just
That would be awesome if Tom Hanks started rocking Q gear. Like this would be like my favorite track for 2024 if that actually happened.
Yeah, it's
Great,
probably
great
AI.
movies need great actors.
I would love to see another Forrest Gump, except Forrest ends up going to like the J6 instead of going to the Vietnam sort of protests.
I really think Forrest Gump and the whole idea of a Forrest
Yeah.
Gump is the best idea for a super spy for
He
China.
meets Ashley Babbitt.
He
That's his new
shows us
nanny.
at the beginning that he's taking money from China, but not really going to play with their ping pong paddles. That's part of the whole gist of Forrest Gump and ping pong of it all and pizza of it all and ice cream. It's like the amount of symbolism just in the
And
Pizzagate.
Forrest Gump ushered in the whole concept of like, don't believe what you see. History can be faked. Look, Tom Hanks is sitting next to JFK right now, or Nixon.
Yep. I think that is actually the point in the zeitgeist where they started to fidget. But that's also where they gave us the internet. And very quickly after, not enough of us bit on the internet. So they had to do Pam and Tommy sex tape. And so then we were all like, what? And then they got us all on the internet. It's like they use these little moments of quote unquote breaking the internet to get us all back on. So they like Twitter doesn't have enough traction. That's why every 30 days Elon says Trump's coming back to Twitter. But where's Trump? He still hasn't been back to Twitter because Elon wants that traction so bad of people giving a fuck. And so the only thing that sells any papers is Trump, and all X is a big paper, and he can't get you into the everything app unless you buy into the big paper first. And as much as people think everyone's on X, it's not. The world we live in is really finite. And people think everybody's on this social media platform, and everybody's on different social media platforms. That's why the whole Elon Musk, I'm going to box Mark Zuckerberg, all that fake just so they can both sell their platform. It's all marketing, like the same way Mark's on and I'm Joe Rogan and he's like, oh, I'm talking about this. And I'm like, oh, you should try Alpha Brain. You should try some Alpha Brain over here. And it just doesn't seem like a commercial right in your face, but that's exactly what they're doing all the time now. All these gatekeepers are all just commercializing in our face, and we're not even realizing how much we're taking in that stuff. It's like every episode of Joe Rogan is Oprah's favorite things. But that's just one podcast. I just use him as an example of the Trojan horse, the Rogan horse.
Yeah. You don't like Joe Rogan very much. I know that.
Yeah, he's worked for
CIA.
Disney. He's worked for Disney. I just think he is the most dangerous cheesecloth to a free thinker. I think he asks enough questions to get people to think they're in the right place, and he gives them this steroided mental bravado of sitting at dinner parties and having all the right talking points, but it's all through what we're allowed to say. He's the one who introduced us to Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's the one that told us the alien invasion was coming with Tom DeLonge. He's the one that, the only time he really got mad is if Eddie Bravo brought up Pizzagate. And so I just think Joe Rogan's the only person I ever heard flip on the moon landing. Andy worked on a show called Fear Factor, which I just think that was them laughing at this is the way they actually torture people. This is the way they actually play games and like put you in a thing of spiders and then they're like, "Ah, look at the level of her adrenaline spiking." I just think it was all the tests, like us watching part of their rituals that they do in the dark. Like we got to see what goes on behind the doors. But it was
We've
just called a
seen
show called
many
Fear Factor.
rituals. CERN, is that a whole fucking secret society? Like
I
with their
thought
whole
about that
ass,
too.
yeah,
Rituals outside. Yeah.
yeah. Like they had, we don't know what's going on there. Like they tell us, oh, we found a God particle. What? It's like la di da. Okay, yeah, we opened a portal into another dimension. Okay, what fucking dimension? Hell.
I like that Mark even brought up the national parks, I think, earlier, and how that's all like all this dictated space that we don't know what kind of ritual goes on in these places or how many bohemian groves might be involved in the world. Like
Yeah.
you just come across this staircase that you're like, what's this here for? We don't know. They usually put a pit of fire at the end of it.
Or they're telling us certain things and they really tapped into some other like dimensions where they're connecting with beings. Like we don't know. We don't know. I don't know. They show me what they want me to know, but do I want to like take that in and believe that? I don't think so.
Mark, where can everyone find everything my family thinks I'm crazy? And feel free to add whatever else you want to add before you fly out the door.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Thanks for introducing me to so many new ideas. I didn't know about a bunch of stuff that you ladies talked about, Thomas. And I have done tons of
Like
podcasts
dry
together.
tampons?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, I hope there's a whole show on Nephilim and dry tampons.
That was that was towards the end, but before that there was other ideas too. But yeah, I've done tons of podcasts with Thomas. People can maybe start there if they're new to my show. Cheney's been on my actually no, not yet. So Cheney, you got to be a guest on my show eventually, but I've been a guest on her show, so you could find me there.
Season 1 of
Way back
Project Cheney.
when we did a show on YouTube, Idiocalypse. So this is kind of cool. It kind of reminds me of that in some ways. But yeah, it's been fun being here. If anybody wants to listen to my podcast, it's called My Family Thinks I'm Crazy. We talk about a lot of the same stuff we talked about tonight, minus a few topics.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of having like a female male energy aspect on a podcast. You could get like a broader view of different perspectives that could be out there because sometimes we're just like one-sided, one-brained, and we don't like to like delve into other ideas. But like the what ifs between men and women, like coming together and like just talking shit out, that's where you find the magic and the balance of it all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, don't be afraid to invite women onto your show, guys. You can learn a few things, and we can learn a lot from y'all. So that's where we can heal. We can heal that shit, right?
I'm just going to let it sit silent for a minute.
Agreed. I like some great ladies on my show. I don't know. Sometimes I'm
Yeah.
nervous about who I book
Yeah.
because I do have a girlfriend, so I just don't want to have to. I don't know. Maybe I'll just podcasting could be kind of they're one-on-one. I just don't want her to get the wrong idea. That's all.
They
Yeah.
are a date. They are a little bit of a date.
Exactly.
Are they really? They're just
Yeah.
interviews.
They feel that
They
way.
are, but you're hanging out in this one-on-one setting, like you might as well be having dinner, and it's intimate.
Yeah, but you're not going in with that intention. I'm going in an interview. It's like, oh shit, like I get to fucking tell my story and like people get to hear it. It's not like I'm like going in with like that mentality that,
No, yeah, I think
yeah,
you have a good point there. It's not
yeah,
necessarily like that for me, but
yeah.
I
I
can't
guess
always
it's the
read
perspective
what
of how
she's
people,
thinking.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I would flip it on its head and just tell your girlfriend too that like it's time to elevate more female voices in this space, right? Because it's
Oh
already
fucking
flooded
yeah.
with a bunch of dudes talking to another bunch of dudes.
Scratching their beards.
Yeah, always.
I feel like,
I like
all of them
that,
do
though.
that.
I like that.
Sorry, no offense, dudes. That
I
scratch
would
your
do that if
beards.
I had a beard.
I
I
probably
If I
would
have
too.
one chin hair, I just mess with that one chin hair.
I'd twist it.
Yeah. So I
I'd be
can
like making
imagine.
it point straight out or
Who's
something.
the guy in Mannequin that like braids the one hair
Hollywood!
that comes out of the side of his
Hollywood! Mannequin's such a fun Hollywood. Sorry. If you know, you know. All right. Well, does anyone have any other secret society stuff before we flip her out?
I just wanted to workshop a name. Unfortunately, Netflix is taken, but what about Nephilix?
Oh, I love it. Nephilim. Shout out.
That could be our movie night, Nephilix.
I fucking
I
love it.
love
How do we
it.
start this, Cheney?
I know I have to shout out to Jim for from the Weaving Spiders for making these awesome Nephilim. It started with I don't even know last podcast I was just like, Nephilim's going to be the new word, like homunculus. We might as well just get ready for it. Like, it's going to inundate the whole sphere. It's going to become the new word. And so then we were researching with people, and the M is silent on Nephilim. And so it's Nephila, like Nutella almost. And then we were like, oh, we should spread that word. But instead, we just started to say, like, what's that? So
I
really
like
the
doing
good
that.
deed is that it's Nephila.
It's like
But-
throat singing.
Yeah, it's like you're playing a didgeridoo. Nephilim. That's a singular. That's one singular. If you come across just one lone, like Goliath, he
fungi
was just
or fungi.
one Nephili. That's why David could beat him with the slingshot. If he had other Nephilim friends there, Nephil friends, then they would have maybe been okay. And I won't even. Well, yep, I will. I'll end it here. If there were big caves, like giants, big cave vaginal entrances, those would be great places to have your secret society meetings. And if you like did have secret society meetings there, then maybe if you ever came across it, a dry tampon would be a nightmare. Okay, I'll just let it sit there. Bye bye.
Right.
Well, we used to think we knew was gone, so we explored the blue. All possibilities come true, so what we do is call out to the good guys. Good guys, good guys, good guys. Witches, widows, bigger mistakes, entertaining, calming linguists. Good guys. Forum of decorum needs a secretive society to advance on philosophies intentionally, magically good guys, good guys, good guys, good guys. Witches, widows, mischief making. It's okay to change your thinking. Good guys. Good guys, good guys.
Pussy now this morning. Oh, Mummy, I got my pussy. Please run to me and let me see. Oh, she's a bunny, y'all. She's a bunny this morning. Come here, bunny girl. Come here, bunny girl. Oh, I'm so fast, Mummy. I'm so